so addicted to cream puffs, I thought perhaps I could be his dealer. And I wanted your help in distributing top quality sweetness. Then I remembered this mofo already bakes his own cream puffs, but there is something else you could help me with, and that is to hit the like and subscribe button. Oh, and, since a few of you have been crying for old boy Sama back, channel owner Senpai allowed him to do season 1, and I'll do season 2.
In the magic realm, everyone uses magic at their fancy, making it a natural part of everyday life. It is believed that magic is a gift bestowed by God. With such a high emphasis placed on its mastery, magic determines one's social status in the world. In a deep forest where dragons flying about is ordinary, the animals tremble in fear with their mouths wide open as they watch Mash bench press a ridiculous amount of weight like it's nothing. His existence defies the natural order. The guy racks the weight and enjoys a cream puff and states that there is nothing like eating one after pumping iron. In a hut nearby, his father named Bernadette Regro casually sits on his chair while using magic to pour himself a drink. He lives with his son in a forest far from other humans. In his old age, very little bothers him because through his experiences he has acquired ways to combat stress. This is put to the test when Mash tries to enter the house and pulls the whole door off. This causes the old man to scream. He wants to know why he ripped the doors off their hinges. His son explains that he couldn't remember if it was supposed to push or pull. This excuse confuses the old-timer because Mash has been living in the house for years. The young man starts to feel bad about his actions and apologizes, promising to fix it. Bernadette calms down a little when he sees the kid is remorseful, but he starts to panic again when Mash tries to fix the door as he turns to the side and continually bashes it against the door frame. He attempts to instruct him to turn it back, but he's unable to do it in time, resulting in Mash breaking the door further. At this point, he has given up, so he pours some tea for both of them to take. He confirms if his son has finished the day's training routine. Mash asks why all of his workouts are physical. Bernadette pauses for a moment before answering. His internal dialogue reveals that Mash is not like ordinary people because he can't use magic at all, so the least he can do is build him up physically. Bernadette doesn't give him an answer and brushes it off as a story for another time. He gets up and tells his son that he is heading out for a little while, so he is trusting him to take care of their crib. Mash is content with the agreement and has figured out how to fix the door. His father wants him to learn how to open and close it instead. Bernadette seriously reminds him not to venture into the city while he's gone. As soon as his father turns away, he removes a flyer from a bakery advertising a limited edition flavor cream puff. He puts on a cloak and jogs towards the city as he's unable to resist the treats despite his father's stern warning. This guy is an absolute menace. He arrives in the city with his head up, which allows him to blend in. He looks around and notices that everyone is using magic to the point that they are utilizing it for things that can be easily done with good old hands. He arrives at the bakery and the smell of freshly baked goods makes his body tense up with excitement. This causes him to clutch his hands tight. Mash steps forward and places an order for 7 pieces of the limited edition cream puffs. The baker is shocked when he hands over the coins because they are mangled. Mash comments that he got too excited and squashed them in his hand. The baker is sure that they don't bend when someone squeezes them in their hands. The young man apologizes as he straightens them. This feat causes the worker to scream. He calms down after a moment and hands Mash over his orders. A sudden gust of wind removes his head, revealing his face. Everyone immediately looks at him with worried expressions. They begin to mutter and panic, stating that they don't see a mark on his face. Meanwhile, Brad at Magic Police HQ reads the newspaper, which reports on the year's Divine Visionary. The chosen student is Rain Ames, a second year at Easton Magic Academy. This title is awarded to the pupil who demonstrates the highest degree of excellence over the school year. The recipient is also awarded a promotion to nobility, among other rewards. Brad gets salty looking at it and compares it to his dull life and job. He has someone tied up in a cell. The man pleads for forgiveness, confessing that he only stole something small. His comment just makes Brad angrier because his crime has given him more work. The officer removes his wand in preparation to give him a punishment that will make him regret his crime, but the prisoner is saved by a call. Someone informs Brad that a young man is walking around the city without a mark. Back on the streets, Mash walks around oblivious to what is causing all the commotion as people stare at him. He remembers the warning his dad gave him and apologizes to the vision of his father, but he feels like it was worth making the journey for the Goblin Cream Puffs. His stroll is interrupted when he bumps into Policeman Terry. The officer gets riled up that he got some of the fillings on his uniform, but he's at fault because he's woozy. The young man tries to seek forgiveness by offering him a cream puff, but Terry knocks it out of his hand. Perhaps if it was a donut, he might have accepted. As he continues to berate him, Mash rips his uniform, which shocks everyone. He was intending to wash and return it to the officer. Brad arrives at the scene and quickly makes Terry stand down. He looks over to Mash, who is enjoying his dessert. The officer is confused as to why he's been so casual in such a situation. Before he can fully interact with the unmarked kid, Bernadette swipes his son and dashes off. Brad sees this as an opportunity to get a promotion, so he sends a magic bird to follow the two. As soon as the father and son get home, Bernadette scolds Mash for going into the city despite being warned so many times. The old-timer quickly realizes that his son is regretful about his actions. This quells his anger, but he punishes him by having him repeat that morning's training routine. Mash accepts his dad's judgment, but before he heads to work out, he gives him the cream puffs he bought for him. Bernadette rushes to the door to open it for Mash after remembering what happened earlier on. He really can't stay mad because he knows that Mash is a good kid at heart. Bernadette knows that he's at the age where he wants to go out and explore, but they have been living in isolation to make sure that he's safe. Looking at the situation in town, the father is sure that the magic police have caught wind of Mash and his trait. As he plans his next move, Bernadette notices a magic bird perched on a branch looking into the house. Before he can process the information, one side of the home is breached by a unit led by Brad. He smugly greets the old man and asks about his son's location, all the while Mash heads into the woods and begins to manipulate the weights like they are fake. This time a little squirrel is horrified by what it is seeing. The situation gets more bizarre when he states that he can complete the workout in 5 minutes if he puts his mind to it. He heads back home to eat his favorite dessert. As he approaches, he even sings a song about the food he's about to consume. When he reaches the door, the same predicament strikes again as he wonders if it is a push or a pull. He pauses when he overhears the unit leader talking. At this point, Brad has burned it up and restrained him by the neck. The officer reveals that the reason why magic has flourished since the dawn of recorded history is that they have aggressively rid themselves of those who were not able to use magic. This is a necessary sacrifice to maintain this balance, so he wants to know where his son is. The old-timer remains tight-lipped, causing Brad to throw him around out of frustration. The officer reminds him that it is a serious offense to shelter and unmarked. As he sits there, Bernadette thinks about how his whole life he was labeled as a failure in everything he did. This label persisted till his adulthood, and it became unbearable, so one night he went to end it all. However, he paused when he heard baby Mash crying. He noticed that he was abandoned because he was unmarked. When he picked him up, he began to laugh, which touched him dearly, so he decided to raise him as they were both rejected by society. That moment was the first time in his life that he felt like someone needed him. Even though they are not related by blood, he will always be a father to Mash. Bernadette begins to shout, instructing his son to run, while Brad tries to shut him up. He orders his men to check into the area for him. He must be close enough to hear the warning. The old man continues to shout even though he's getting beaten. The officer has had enough and charges up a spell to finish off Bernadette. Mash comes in hot with a powerful punch through the door, knocking the first subordinate out instantly. Everyone looks at him in disbelief as the raw power he just displayed is not normal. He stands there, hands still smoking like a rifle after being shot. Terry marches over to intimidate him, but he rips his shirt again and begins to unleash a barrage of slaps that knock him out. Mash reveals to Bernadette that he didn't run because they are family. He then turns to Brad and declares that he's going to send them to hell. Brad finds this amusing. He doesn't see how Mash can take him down without magic. At this point, Terry has regained consciousness, and the consequences of the slaps are there for all to see. He reveals that the unit leader was on the Bureau of Magic Security Force. The mages in the area can't compare to him, let alone a magicless kid. Brad charges a spell, and his number one fan comments that it is a spell strong enough to drive away a dragon. The officer fires it, but Mash exhibits a flick of the wrist and swats it away like an unwanted booger. Brad can't believe what he is seeing and gets startled for a moment. He quickly regroups and fires a more powerful spell, even though Terry pleads for him not to release it. Brad is gobsmacked as Mash sends it back to the center's same-day delivery. It jets past his head and explodes deeper into the forest. He continues to fire more attacks, but the magicless boy begins to deflect them, inspired by various sports, from volleyball to football, and even juggles some. Mash picks up his father's wand and asks permission to use it. The officer thinks that he's got magic and puts up a barrier, but to his surprise, Mash launches the wand, which shatters the barrier and leaves a little cut on Brad's cheek. He falls to the ground with a look of defeat on his face. Bernadette is shocked because he didn't expect the training to create such a monster. Brad begins to laugh at this whole situation. He decides to offer Mash a deal. He wants him to enroll in a magic school and become the year's divine visionary. If he gets selected, it means the gods have accepted him, which in turn will lead to society accepting him. Brad wants the fortune and prestige that comes with it as his backer. Bernadette tries to dissuade his son from taking the deal, but the officer explains that the only other option is that they will get hunted for the rest of their lives. Mash takes the deal, so with the aid of Brad, he gets a fake mark and is enrolled in magic school to be the best magician without an ounce of magic. He stands in front of the school ready to crush his competition. The story continues at the academy, which is said to be a historic and prestigious school that produces people that are known to be pillars of the magic realm. The prospective students gather at one of the open fields for the notoriously difficult entrance examination. Less than 3% of applicants get admitted, meaning only those with superior magical power are allowed to grace the school halls. Mash stands there with no magical power, looking to make a splash. While the students prepare, Lucci decides to get an early look at the year's applicants. He notes that a few of the
New Downy Perfume Collection. Olusine tada kawo kumbo manga ndi mukaka mukafu. Oba kawo katuma kampu manga ndi mukyango.
Candidates are from higher society, which makes him happy given the prestige of the school. But his thoughts are getting distracted by a clanging sound that begins to irritate him. Lucci scans around to find the culprit, and he's frozen in shock to see Mash lifting such ridiculous weight. He's also confused that someone would be pumping iron just when they are about to start the exam for magic school. Lucci calms himself down and immediately labels Mash as a slacker. He looks over again and is shocked that he's doing the iconic invisible chair while reading a fitness book. Haters will say he stole the invisible cloak from Harry Potter. Lucci is more offended that he's not reading a magic book. He even notices Bernadette and Brad looking the exact opposite of inconspicuous as they try to blend in to keep an eye on Mash throughout the examination. His father is a little skeptical about how his son is going to pass their test without using magic, but the magic officer is confident that his scar will fool everyone as it's indistinguishable from the real one. All Mash has to do is pass the tests. Lucci does not think much of it, but he doesn't expect him to go further. Lucci's voice is projected across the area, welcoming everyone while Mash eats his cream puffs, wondering what kind of test he's going to have to do. He appears stylishly with a burst of flames, which impresses everyone. Lucci announces that he will be overseeing their examination. The students get both intimidated and happy as he's the 7th best up-and-coming mage. They continue to give him more hype, stating that despite his young age, he has mastered a lot of advanced spells. Lucci twitches in excitement, wanting them to praise him more. Mash kills his hype by commenting on his lame entrance. That comment annoys Lucci, who makes the promise to fail him. He announces that the first examination will commence as he makes seats appear from the ground and summons paper and feathers for them to write. The students begin to get excited because they have never seen this type of magic before. Mash acts like a stoplight for the hype train when he points out that he could have just taken them to an already prepared room for the test. This second comment makes Lucci promise to end him for his transgression. He again brushes off Mash's comments because he believes Mash will not last long. The students take a seat at their respective places and are told that they have 30 minutes to complete the test. They all turn their papers over and are surprised to see the questions squirming around the page. Lucci reveals that he has enchanted the papers with magic, so to pass the exam they must dispel the enchantment and line up the questions. Bernadette is not confident his son can pull this one off. Even Brad starts to second-guess his proposition. Meanwhile, Mash kindly asks the letters to stop moving across the page, but nothing happens, so he snaps his pen in frustration on his second time asking. The words get intimidated and quickly arrange themselves. His people can't believe what they are seeing. He takes his paper to Lucci to inspect, and the examiner is surprised that he managed to complete the task. Mash continues to use his freakish physical capabilities to pass more of the tests, which puts everyone in a state of disbelief. Lucci watches on, frustrated that a slacker like Mash is still around. He thinks of a way to eliminate him and quickly announces the next test. Lucci erects a maze around the students and gives them 30 minutes to reach the goal. Mash feels confident about this one, but he is approached by Lemon, who wants to tag along with him and explains that it would be more efficient. He sees the logic in her statement and agrees. As they navigate, she falls into the majority of the traps, which makes him think twice about teaming up with a useless Lemon. While his guard is down, she apprehends him with a handcuff spell and reveals that she has been deceiving him. Her true aim is to keep him away from the goal. She is shocked to see him casually break the cuffs and leave because he also has his reasons why he must reach the goal. As she plans her next move, a giant monster asks her a riddle, but she's unable to answer because she's so terrified. She tries to attack with her wand, but the Egyptian monster knocks it out of her hand and counters when her time is up. However, Mash comes to the rescue and knocks it out with a clean punch. She's baffled as to why he came back to save someone who just tried to hinder him. Mash explains that he noticed that her reasons were similar to his, so he felt sorry for her. Because of the delay, she expresses that they might not make it to the goal on time. The other students who made it out congregate waiting for the timer to end. Lucci is confident that Mash will not make it given the time remaining. His face changes when they hear loud thuds approaching them, and everyone's jaw drops when they see that Mash has created a shortcut by knocking the walls down. The examiner is especially surprised because the walls are 1 meter thick and impervious to all magic. Headmaster Wahlberg watches the commotion from his office, and he is intrigued by Mash. The students begin to question the legitimacy of how the two completed the maze, and this leads to them chanting that the duo should be sent home. Mash takes all their criticism head on, but it makes him a little sad, so Lemon shouts for them to stop. She tells them it was her fault, and this prompts Lucci to tell her to shut up and threatens her for good measure. Lemon doesn't heed his warning and continues to confess that Lucci promised her a place at the school if she stopped Mash from getting to the goal. She took the offer because her family is poor, so she wanted to be accepted into the school to open opportunities to remove them from that condition. She embellished her encounter with Mash a little, stating that he asked for her hand in marriage, but the guy calmly corrects her. Lucci admits to his actions and even confirms that he doesn't like Mash. The examiner begins to talk down on them and releases magic energy as he asks if they want to challenge his decision. Mash dashes over to him and snaps his wand as he tells the professor that he's gone too far. The rest of the students can't believe what he has just done. His guardians are also taken aback by his boldness. Before Lucci can take further action, the headmaster stops him in his tracks with one shout. While he floats above them, he announces the final interviews will now commence. From this point, Headmaster Wahlberg claims he's taking charge of the examination. He asks Lucci to come to see him at his office when the selection process has finished. He selects Mash as the one to be interviewed, and he appears in a dark room surrounded by officials. They exchange greetings, and Mash expresses his gratitude to be allowed into the HQ. They ask him a series of questions, and the others are not impressed with his answers, but the headmaster is intrigued by them. He wants to know why he decided to save the girl with the knowledge that he would not have enough time to complete the maze. He simply lets the old-timer know that he feels like he would have regretted it if he didn't do it. The headmaster is amused with that answer and concludes that he must be the type who acts before thinking. Mash never considered that the Sphinx might be stronger, nor did the idea of not being able to break the walls cross his mind. Mash believes that it had to be done even if it was considered. Wahlberg attributes his words to Mash as not understanding the ways of the world yet. Beta Dumbledore explains that many creatures exist in the world that are stronger than him. He wonders if he could keep the same logic and take the same course of action when he's faced with something that overwhelmingly outpowers him. As the headmaster makes this statement, he uses himself as an example and releases a sinister aura before casting an ominous-looking spell. Even the teachers are terrified by the magical power. The spell begins to activate as the monster cranks down a pointed blade tip towards a doll. Mash calmly wants to know what stands before him. Wahlberg explains that it is an ancient spell that transfers the soul of the target's most cherished people into the doll. Bernadette suddenly faints to the floor as his soul is transferred. If the knife were to stab into the soul-filled doll, that cherished person will never return to their body. Mash begins to punch the blade, trying to stop it, but it doesn't move and it causes great damage to his hand. The teachers watch in shock as Mash lodges his hands between the blade and the doll, which halts it. Even the headmaster is a little surprised by his actions. The young man states that Wahlberg can't maintain his spell forever, so he has turned this into an endurance contest. The headmaster believes, depending on the person, power can be used to harm or help. This is why he emphasizes protecting the weak and regulating the strong, also known as noblesse oblige. From his observation, Wahlberg feels like Mash is a human that possesses that capacity. He deactivates the spell and apologizes as the place is lit up with candles. The old wizard reveals that he was testing him. He has no sinister intention of that nature. Mash accepts his apologies and answers his question of if he was to face the headmaster. The guy simply states that he would beat him down with his fists. Even the bootleg Dumbledore is stunned by that statement. The other teachers find his comment to be the highest form of insolence, causing them to scold him. The headmaster laughs again and welcomes him to the Easton Magic Academy by offering him a spot. Mash is already a legend in my eyes. All the while, Bernadette's soul returns to his body. After a short while, they begin class where they learn the lock opening spell, which is the most basic. The teacher demonstrates, but Mash just opens it with his bare hands. The tutor gets irate that he used brute force to break the lock, which did not open it. She reminds him that he's here to learn magic. She is shocked when Mash explains that he's not good with magic. Finn sits next to him and already sees Mash as a troublemaker and knows to keep his distance. Meanwhile, a group of seniors peek into the class with a sinister look as they smile. Later on, Finn looks for his dorm hoping that he's not staying together with Mash. He reaches his place of stay and is surprised that there is no door. He turns and sees he is rooming with Mash, who is holding the door. This is not his ideal situation. The two introduce themselves and Mash just warns him that he might cause trouble because he doesn't understand how things work yet. He changes into his workout gear and begins to introduce his muscles, which Finn finds strange. Now that the ice is broken, he asks how to become the Divine Visionary. Finn explains that one has to collect gold coins by excelling in tests, coursework, extracurricular activities, and school life. Silver and bronze are awarded for lesser performances. No matter how many gold coins one collects, if grades are not kept up each semester, one will be suspended. After hearing this, Mash holds his head in despair, but he snaps out of the mindset quickly and offers Finn a cream puff to cement their friendship. Things continue with Mash eating cream puffs in his dorm while his roommate does some studying. He interrupts Finn to ask if he could lend him his broom for his class the following day. The guy brought a giant plant root, thinking it was a broom, which surprises Finn. Finn concedes and agrees to allow him to borrow it. Mash expresses his gratitude, commenting that he knew that his roommate was a great guy. The following day, the students gather in an open space where the tutor introduces the broom riding lesson. She explains that one must channel magic energy into the broom and command it with the cue word fly. The next step is to straddle the broom and regulate the magic to keep it afloat. She instructs them to begin immediately. The students begin to command their brooms one at a time. I am interested to see how Mash is going to get away with this one. Before he begins, he reaffirms the reason why he must succeed before he commands his broom to fly, but nothing happens because of his lack of magic power. As he stands there unable to lift his broom, a student begins to mock him for not being able to complete the task and comments on how he's slowing down the rest of the class. Mash responds by lifting the broom with a stamp of his foot, but he delays his fly command. The student watches gobsmacked for a moment before calling Mash out on the cap of his lift. He calls him a cheater, noting that his broom flew up before he commanded it, but the magicless guy behaves oblivious to his comments. Their interaction is interrupted when the teacher announces time trials that will be held to determine who the fastest student is. The student decides to use it as an opportunity to wager against Mash. The loser has to submit to the winner till they graduate. Mash agrees, so they line up prepared to race as the tutor stands ready to get the thing started. The student is very confident that he will win because, unlike the transfers, he has been riding brooms since middle school. The tutor recognizes Mash as the class clown that interrupted the lesson with his OP strength. Based on his past performance, she doesn't think that he can even ride a broom. As soon as she begins the race, Mash already dashes to the end. The student is left gobsmacked again at what he just witnessed. The feat gets the tutor in an irate state as she comments on his incredible speed and announces multiple times that a new world record has been set. His classmates are confused about what just happened. Finn internally reveals that he got a good look at what Mash just did. As soon as the teacher said start, the guy launched the broom and immediately dashed toward it at high speed. Mash turned into a physicist and used the air resistance to decrease his approach, which also gave him the chance of closing the gap and mounting on the broom midair. Finn can't even fathom how that's even possible. All the while, the arrogant student runs over to Mash, adamant that he must have cheated, refusing to believe what he just witnessed. Mash only comments that he feels bad for him as he can't face the fact that he lost. He even adds insult to injury by telling him that he will drop the wager out of pity. Just before the arrogant student can run his mouth, it suddenly gets sewed shut by Cabell, who comments that he shouldn't make a scene. With a fake smile, he apologizes on his behalf for his rudeness, revealing that the arrogant student is his friend. The other students watch unworried at the fact that Cabell is talking to Mash, and they comment that he's a target now. They all agree to stay out of it as they don't want any trouble, but they feel bad for Mash as he is Cabell's first victim now that they have moved to high school. The bootleg Draco Malfoy admits that the feat he just performed caught his attention and offers friendship with Mash. Cabell introduces himself and Mash completely butchers his name to the point most would take it as an insult. The whole class falls silent after hearing that name butchering. Cabell tries to hide his frustration and prepares to cast a spell. However, the teacher stops and interjects, reminding him that they are in the middle of a class. Wish Malfoy finds Mash funny and suggests that they meet again at their current location after school. The magicless student agrees. After the lesson, Cabell pulls the arrogant student to a secluded place and begins to beat him for losing in such a spectacular fashion. Meanwhile, the roommates walk the corridors when Mash wants to know more about Cabell. Finn begins his exposition by stating that Cavil is a continuing student from the Academy Middle School Division just like him. Everyone is afraid of him because his father is a high-ranking member of the Bureau of Magic, and the organization is absolute in their world. Mash gives shifty eyes as he states that he knew that when he was oblivious to the fact. Finn simplifies it by saying that once someone stands against him, they would get expelled. The vice principal of the academy has close ties with the bully's family. This malicious duo has tormented countless students, which is why everyone obeys and fears the guy. After school, Mash makes cream puffs, as making them from scratch once in a while is fun, but he feels like he's forgetting something important. His hunch is true because Cavil and his lackeys are waiting for him, and the guy is irate that he has not shown up yet. The following day, Mash removes his books in preparation for the next class and notices that it's in a bad state and just comments that it is falling apart. Cavil's lackeys watch on laughing since they know there is something more sinister going on. Their boss comes to confront Mash about not attending their meeting the previous day. He realizes that was his hunch and apologizes, explaining that he was making cream puffs, which enrages Cavil, but he changes the topic as he has caught wind that Mash is aiming to be the divine visionary. He uses his close relationship with the vice principal to promise him a favorable word. All Mash has to do is follow his orders, so the magicless guy quickly agrees to the terms and conditions without reading the fine prints. But he does find it strange that such a deal has come all of a sudden. Cavil informs him that he just wants to help him out because he seems like a fun person. He has Mash hold their items, polishing his shoes among other things. He gets back to his next lesson and finds that that book was destroyed again. He asks Finn if he can share and imposes himself even though the guy is reluctant. Mash thanks him again for all his help and even gives him some cream puffs to show his appreciation. He ends it by stating how lucky he is to have a great guy like him as a friend. Later on, Mash gets a drink for Cavil, but he deliberately pours it on the floor and asks him to clean it, which he does to a high level. During that interim, it is revealed that it was Finn, under the orders of Cavil, who was destroying his books. They want him to take things a step further and burn his clothes, but the kind words Mash spoke to him earlier gives Finn the courage to refuse. Cavil wastes no time and activates his thread spell that pins Finn to the ground. The boss informs him that he has made a mistake, which is why he must drop down and beg for forgiveness. All the while, Mash looks for Finn when he realizes that he still has his book. The magicless student hears the sound of someone getting beaten up and goes to check it out. He arrives to find Finn on the ground bleeding. Cavil tells Mash that he is only getting an apology from the guy. Mash makes his way over to Finn to make sure that he's okay, but Finn doesn't care about his current state. He begins to cry, confessing that it was him that destroyed his books under the orders of Cavil. Mash calling him a friend hit him deeply, so he is compelled to apologize to him. Cavil tries to manipulate Mash by informing him that he is heading to meet with the vice principal and drops him an invite proclaiming that it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Mash just walks up to him and bounces his head off the floor, knocking him out instantly. He instructs Cavil that he is the one who needs to apologize. The bully's lackeys are shocked by what Mash just did, giving the status of Cavil. Finn tells him that his actions will get him expelled. After rethinking everything, he realizes that what he has just done may land him in some hot water. Vice Principal Farman appears out of nowhere and agrees with Mash's statement. He reveals that Cavil's father has entrusted him to look after his son. He witnessed the entire incident. Mash is happy to hear this because that means his name will be cleared. But to his shock, Farman plans to twist the situation to make Mash look like the aggressor, and even tells them that a school conference will be held regarding their roles in this incident. The vice principal begins to explain that Cavil is of a higher status, which means he gets different treatment. Before he can finish his explanation, Mash makes his situation worse by dashing over and kneeing the vice in the face. Finn and the lackeys almost die from shock. Mash explains that he only attacked because it seemed like Farman wasn't interested in the truth. So while he's already in hot water for his first attack, this second one wouldn't make a big difference in his current standing, which is a fair point. Farman holds his face as he complains that Mash just assaulted him. He informs him that he can expel ordinary students like him at any time. He tries to attack the magicless student, but he counters by slapping mud in his face. Mash begins to dig, and he places the vice inside before covering it. Mash threatens him that he can be buried alive at any time. Even if he's apprehended, he will find him and bury him. The vice pleads for him to stop as he throws mud to cover him up. Later on, Mash is summoned to the principal's office. Wahlberg reads his transgressions and informs him that this incident is seen as a problem at the Bureau of Magic. He received a notice from them to expel him immediately. The headmaster states that the Bureau is the country's highest legal authority. He will even go as far as to say that they control the country. At the core of the organization are the Divine Visionaries, the Academy furnishes the Bureau with those who attain the top honors at the Academy. Given Cavill's status, what he has done is unforgivable, but what Wahlberg finds more egregious is a world where the caring is at a disadvantage. As he burns the Bureau's notice, he discloses his concern about the current state of things in the world. This was the main reason he took the position as headmaster of the Academy years ago. He sees that at the top, things only work to serve the elites. He acknowledges that there are so few people like MASH who sacrifice themselves for what is right. The divine visionaries who lead the Bureau have their role to carefully consider what people desire, which is why he hopes that someday MASH will become a divine visionary. He tells the headmaster that he already plans to become one, so the old guy is happy to hear this. MASH gets information overload when he tries to explain how to achieve that goal, so he simplifies it, stating that he should earn high marks in his classes and school activities and acquire as many coins as possible. Wahlberg promises to deal with the Bureau and the vice principal. This will lead MASH to concentrate on achieving his goal. As the student leaves, Wahlberg sees one more problem that MASH will eventually face, but he has faith that he will overcome it. MASH makes his way back to his dorm where Finn waits. He ended up with no punishment. However, his beating of Cavill and the vice gained acknowledgement from the other students. The following day, he is recruited to play Duello by Tom, despite enlightening him that he can't ride a broom. The day of the match arrives, and the crowd goes wild. All the players float on their broomsticks as they play the game. MASH tells them that he can't fly, so they start to heckle him by throwing things at him. The game of Duello continues as the Lang dorm dominates. All MASH can do is watch from the ground due to his inability to use magic. Given the situation, he wishes he was home relaxing instead. Meanwhile, in the crowd, Lemon and Finn watch on, worried that MASH hasn't taken to the air yet. The team captain Tom comes down to give him a pep talk. He states that MASH swore he could be number one, which he denies ever saying. Tom advises him not to be complacent and makes an analogy to bamboo, which just confuses MASH. He even begins to speculate that the captain might be high on the hush-hush based on his nonsensical comments. Tom forgot to tell him the rules of the Quidditch clone. To be honest, this game is borderline copyright infringement. JK should lawyer up. Both teams fight for control of the ball midair and score points by passing it through the opposition's ring. The use of magic is forbidden as the sport emphasizes on broom technique. While he explains, the Lang dorm continue to score more points. Tom is passionate about the Duello, as he always put his everything into each game. He recruited MASH because he saw something special about him. He gets back on his broom and hopes that MASH joins them soon. As he floats like a butterfly, the captain from the other team intentionally comes in like a bee sting and crashes into Tom, causing him to fall badly. The fangirls of Tom begin to let out a worried scream. The aggressor sarcastically apologizes and says that it was an accident. MASH rushes over to make sure that he's fine, but Tom tells him that his hand is broken. Lang dorm scores another goal, giving them a 40-point lead. Tom calls out the opposition's sense of sportsmanship, but they laugh at his cry and call it nonsense. For them, all that matters is a winning mindset. The captain finds the situation amusing with them being down by such a significant margin. Given the time, he knows they can't catch up. Despite his dismal situation, Tom tells MASH that winning isn't everything, as one's effort and commitment is more important. The lead just keeps getting worse. The opposition is confident that they have this win secured given the margin and the time left, and not to mention the fact that two of their team members are down. But little do they know that they have annoyed MASH. The guy picks up the broomstick and grabs it tightly in a frustrated manner. He does things his way and leaps into the air to everyone's surprise, but someone points out that he stopped in midair. Upon closer inspection, the students figure out he's maintaining his elevation with rapid foot kicks, which just leaves them dumbfounded. MASH asks his teammates to pass him the ball. He's faced with the other team who rush to take the ball from him. However, they get a rude awakening when MASH hurls the ball from a distance that jets past the opposition and into the ring, scoring his team a point. Everyone is amazed by the shot, but they still specify that the limited time and the points gap are an unfavorable situation. A keen spectator notices the ball's trajectory as it comes back to MASH like a boomerang. They scream collectively in disbelief. He uses his unnaturally strong fingers to curve the ball in such a manner that he just continues to spam the shot like that one cousin who spam moves in a fighting game, and within no time, he surpasses Lang's dorm's score, but continues till he sets a new all-time record. Lemon watches with heart-shaped eyes as the announcer declares Adler Dorm as the winner of the first Duello match of the season. The crowd go wild, and they begin to apologize to MASH for their earlier heckling. Due to their record-setting score, The team were given silver coins. Mash inspects it, wondering why the shape is so odd. Finn is still impressed by how amazing that game was and is dazzled by how quickly Mash has managed to get such a prestigious reward despite the fact that he has only just transferred. He is grateful for the admiration, but he doesn't think he will be playing the game again. Tom interrupts them with a call, and as he walks towards them, the girls start going wild. As he approaches, Finn thinks that he's coming to cause beef. However, it's the exact opposite as he hugs Mash while crying and thanks him for the clutch win. Later on, the Magicless student's achievement is pasted in the newspaper, which Lance reads. He recognizes Mash from the entrance exam and destroys his picture as he recalls that he risked failing for a stranger. He labels him a naive student while opening his locks before picking him as his next target. The following day, Mash sits in class as Tom tries to get him to come to practice while Lemon attempts to get closer to him by offering to study all their classes as she holds a tower of books. But Mash is not interested in engaging in any of them. Finn doesn't want to be roped in, so he pretends to be sleeping. Lance comes in and interjects, expressing his wish to join the fun. Tom immediately notices his double marks and speculates that he's a first year since he has never seen him before. Lemon is aware of Lance and points out that he ranked first in the entrance exams. She comments on how cute he is now that she's seen him up close. However, she stops her trail of thought because she has given her heart to Mash. The Magicless student tells the newcomer that what they were doing wasn't fun, so Lance suggests that they change that. Mash gets up interested, asking if they are playing hide and seek. The top rank pulls out a bottle from his robe, pointing out that it is a special magic tool that is ancient. He opens the lid, which shrinks Tom, Lemon, and Finn before they are sucked into the vessel. He reveals that he is capable of trapping people. Lance informs Mash that if he wants them back, he must come to the forest, and then disappears. The two later meet at the designated place, and Mash wants to know what all of this is about. Lance points out that he wants them to bet because just like Mash, he too is collecting the coins. He has 2 silvers at the moment, which shocks Tom, who makes it known that it is only a select number of upperclassmen that have them. It is revealed that line marks indicate the amount of magic power one possesses. Lance has 2, meaning he's really bad news. The majority of people are known as single-line magic users. However, there are rare exceptions with multiple marks known as double-line magic users. They exist in the world at a rate of 1 in 100,000. These people are looked at as chosen by magic itself. Lance states that they will bet each other's silver coin in a match. They will fight until one can no longer continue or gives up. We learn that any other format of dueling is prohibited in the school. Since he has his friends hostage in a bottle, Mash doesn't have a choice but to accept. He points out that he has a huge advantage just by having the bottle, as he knows about his selfless personality. But resting bitch face number 2 knows that he doesn't need this advantage to win. Lance points out that he was too soft by helping Lemon during the entrance exams. He is disgusted that he prioritized someone else over his own goals. Tom and Lemon advise Mash not to take the fight. The Magicless student has had enough of the long talk and wants to start the fight. Lance showcases his power by clearing the land using a gravity spell. The clearing can be felt by Bernadette and Brad, who are lurking about, still trying to keep an eye on Mash. The officer expresses his worry, which catches Bernadette's attention, but he quickly explains that he is worried about his profits. Back to the fight, Lance has cleared the place, leaving concentric rings. Mash comments on the flashness of the performance, calling it unnecessary. Mash dashes towards him, which confuses the number 1, who feels like it's a bit disrespectful to try and win against him without magic. He pins him to the floor with his gravity spell and begins to talk down to Mash, stating that he has no aspirations, so he doesn't deserve the silver coin. Lance, on the other hand, is certain that he will be the one who will finish on top. Mash tries to stand, but is unable to, as the number 1 states that no human can withstand his gravity. The Magicless student plunges his hand into the ground and rips out a root, which destabilizes the ground around Lance's feet, causing him to retreat. He lands in a lower position as Mash stands up, looking down at him, asking if he too likes rolling on the ground. Mash wastes no time and dashes towards him again. Lance uses his spell, but the Magicless student increases his speed and escapes the area of effect and swings, but his target dodges. Lance notices that he's faster than earlier. As he retreats, he drops his locket, which lands near Mash. The guy opens it and finds a picture of Lance's younger sister. He confesses that he is overprotective of her. Mash returns it to him, and Lance asks him what the most precious thing in the world is. He feels like he has been put on the spot, but he answers saying that cream puff, human life, love, and freedom are precious to him, but Lance thinks his answers are all wrong. Mash turns the question to him, and with a crazed look in his eyes, he states that it's his sister. The Magicless student points out that his answer proves that everyone has different priorities, but Lance is disgusted and feels like the world is full of idiots because, objectively speaking, his sister is the most important. Mash just finds him creepy. The guy casually walks over to the edge of a cliff and dangles the bottle with Mash's friends inside. Lance explains that he's going to drop the bottle off the cliff and speed up the fall using his magic. When Mash tries to save them, he will be open for a finishing attack. Lance explains that for the sake of his sister, he can turn into the worst monster. He has a flashback that explains his motivations. His sister became ill with an incurable disease that will strip her mark and magical power in the next 5 years. When that happens, they will have to hand her over to the authorities, who will exterminate her, as the genetics for non-magic users can't contaminate the gene pool. Lance promises to become a divine visionary so he can enter the Bureau of Magic to change the rotten system. His current action is to save his sister by any means necessary. He drops the bottle and activates his spell. As it jets down, he turns to Mash and is surprised to see that the guy has changed into his gym gear. The magicless guy warms up and enters Sprinter's start position. He activates hamstring magic, trying to cap his magic power. Lance looks a bit confused because he has never heard of a spell like that. Mash's veins start to bulge as his muscles tense. An aura can be seen around him as he prepares his big bang dash. Before he sets off, he tells Lance that losing to him and not rescuing his friends never existed as options for him. He springs off, and in an instant, he's back with the bottle in hand. Lance can't believe he retrieved it in a flash. He wonders if Mash is using high-level physical enhancement magic. The magicless student states that they should stop because Lance doesn't seem like a bad guy, so he doesn't think they should be fighting. Mash points out that the bottle he dropped was empty. He dashes over and reveals the real one and frees his friends. Lance concedes the battle and gives him the silver coins and leaves. All the while, his friends are so grateful for the save. This affection makes Mash regret opening the bottle immediately. Things continue with Mash and Finn having a hot drink in their dorm. The magicless student inspects his 2 silver coins as it is revealed that it takes 5 pieces to make 1 gold coin. A series of complex equations play through Mash's head as he tries to calculate how many more coins he needs to get that gold coin. His number processing gives him an answer of 28. Finn can't believe his ears as he states that 5 minus 2 is 3. Mash explains his wrong answer is a result of the trick question. Finn tells him that it's no trick and points out that Mash is not the sharpest tool in the box. The magicless student swiftly moves on as he comments on how much of a peaceful day it is since they don't have anything going on. Finn agrees as they have a moment of silence to enjoy things, but this is quickly ruined when Finn remembers that they have an assignment that is due. Mash is a little too calm about the situation. His roommate's panicking becomes worse because the consequence for not submitting the potions assignment is bad. They will be severely marked down, which would put them at serious risk of getting kicked out of the school. Even with everything explained, Mash is more interested in eating his cream puffs as he offers Finn one. The guy scolds him a little as it's not the time for snacks. Mash then mirrors his roommate's action as he panics inside the room. Their moment of hysteria is interrupted by Lance, who overhears everything. He begins to slate them for their loitering around. He even comments on how they are the textbook definition of slackers. From his speech, Finn suspects that he has already finished the assignment. He confirms this, which is to be expected of the top student in their class. Finn feels like the guy is simply flawless. Lance continues his criticism, stating that it is people like them who ruin their dorm's reputation. In the Magic Academy, there are 3 dorms. Students are assigned one based on their characteristics. Aldler is for students who exhibit extraordinary courage and conviction. Dorm Orca is for those who display willingness and wisdom. And finally, Dorm Lang is for those students who demonstrate ability and ambition. These 3 dorms are friendly rivals with one another and always try to display their principles and positions, which carries across the entire academy. Mash shuts Lance up by opening his locket, which has a picture of his younger sister inside. Since he adores her so much, her image knocks him out as he lies there in bliss. When he regains consciousness, he takes them to the kitchen where he explains that Mandragora is the secret to potion assignments. If one manages to silence their screams, then they become a universal ingredient in potions. Mash casually complains that it's another thing that requires magic. Finn points out that that is to be expected since it is a magic school. Lance shows them how it's done. He casts the spell, which causes the screaming vegetable to be quiet. He gives the 2 slackers some for them to practice on. Finn's first attempt is not successful as the vegetable continues to scream. Mash tries to help by pointing out that his center of gravity is unstable, and his core muscles are weak. This confuses his roommate because core muscles have nothing to do with the task at hand. The magicless student lifts his wand and casts the spell, which has the exact opposite reaction as the vegetable's cries intensify. Finn watches in shock as he wonders how that's even possible. Lance points out that he should worry about his shortcomings. The top student instructs Finn to focus his magic on a single point and visualize gently caressing it as he releases his magic. He does as instructed and finds some success, which gets him excited. Lance comments that even slackers like him can be capable. Finn starts to think that maybe Lance is cool after all, and he decides to look over to see how his roommate is doing. The situation is dire as he has managed to aggravate his mandragora to the point that it has grown several times bigger and more aggressive as it swings its limbs all over the place. It begins to attack Mash, but he dodges and casually slaps the vegetable into submission. It crashes to the ground out cold as he tells them that he too has calmed it down. From what they have just witnessed, Finn begs to differ. Lance doesn't argue the point and moves on to the cooking of the mandragora. He explains that once the vegetables are asleep, they turn into a regular herb. He advises them to watch closely even though he thinks the process is somewhat simple. Lance turns into Gordon Ramsay as he blitzes through the steps and presents the complete potion. Finn is flabbergasted as what he just witnessed was anything but easy. On the other hand, Mash feels like he understands the demonstration, which his roommate finds hard to believe. As long as it's not magic, the guy is confident. He goes through the process just like Lance, but instead of a potion, he ends up with a cream puff, which sends Finn into stage 2 shock. Lance feels like Mash is messing around, so he decides to go through each step with him carefully. Even the top student is surprised that he managed to make cream puff again. In his mind it is impossible because he assisted him through the whole process. They just concluded that apart from fighting, he's pretty useless at everything else. Lance takes his time to let Mash know that he doesn't intend to ever lose to him again. He will also not let anyone else take the coins till he wins them back. But Mash is confident that no one can take them away from him. During that interim, he walks through the corridor and bumps into a student trio. They try to confront him, but he calls them a bunch of side characters before dispatching them. All the while, in the Lane dorm, some of the students bow before a triple line magic user as he holds a puppet. The guy has an elitist mindset as he states the trait of a ruler is a noble bloodline and overwhelming power that one cannot argue against. He drops 6 silver pieces as he believes that the dorm he belongs to, which is Dorm Lane, should be number 1, so he orders his minions to seize all other dorms' coins. The following day, the students gather near the woods. They are interrupted by Dot as they speculate on their task. The redhead immediately expresses his adversity towards Mash since everyone is talking about him and even comments that the guy looks like a backup dancer. His analysis doesn't end well when Lemon runs towards Mash calling his name. She has a crush on him, and she acts like a damsel in distress hoping that he will protect her when they enter the forest. The fact that Mash also gets the lady's attention gives Dot another reason to dislike the guy. He reveals that it's the main reason he wants to be a divine visionary so that he can purge the world of good-looking guys like Mash who take all the women. His little rant is interrupted when the teacher appears and announces that there will be a chance to attain bronze and silver coins in their exercise. He explains that their task is to exterminate the forest scorpions. They must bring the stone embedded in the defeated monsters' foreheads. Most of them will only earn bronze coins. However, there are a few which are strong and are worth silver coins. These can be identified by square stones on their foreheads. Ordinary magic users don't stand a chance against them. Defeating such foes is what makes them Easton students. They can do whatever it takes to survive. With everything explained, he gives them the order to enter. Dot alerts Mash that he doesn't intend to lose to him. Lance's goal is to get a silver coin. They are interrupted by a whistle before Iron suddenly appears behind Mash. He too is a double-line magic user. The guy already has a problem with Mash and calls him arrogant. Iron attacks the magicless student with earth-based magic that lands on Mash's gut. The teacher puts an end to it quickly as he tries to act innocent, but Mash gives him a glare which doesn't intimidate him. Iron even expresses his desire to inflict pain on the magicless student before making his way into the forest. Mash gets up to attack, but Lance stops him and informs him that Iron is a year older than him. The guy is infamous for his misconduct. He has injured multiple teachers and students who he doesn't like to the point that he has been held back for a year. The only reason he doesn't get expelled is because of his special talent as a magic user. Lance points out that it's a common trait among students from Langdorm. Guess they are an off-brand Slytherin. The top student's attention is drawn when Mash expresses his relief that his cream puff isn't crushed. Lance figures that it was the reason why he gave Iron that look. The two make their way into the forest and Mash zones out and loses sight of Lance, but he bumps into Dot, who tries to pick a fight with him. However, They are interrupted when they hear a female scream. A true background character prepares to attack the girl for something. Dot intervenes with a powerful exploded spell that finishes the guy promptly and rebukes him for attacking a lady. The girl interrupts and cutely thanks him. Her beauty takes Dot by surprise. He turns away to compose himself, feeling like he must play cool. So he makes a face like he's a character from a shoujo anime as he tries to respond in a cool manner. That doesn't go to plan because she grabs his hand, which forces him to break out of character since her hands are so soft. She calls him strong, which further makes him lose his cool as he hits his head. In the interim, a loud bang makes the birds in the vicinity to flee. It is revealed that the commotion was caused by Iron, who just defeated a monster. With his goal achieved, he turns his sights to hunt for Mash. We cut to the group where they awkwardly sit on a log as the girl gets closer to them. The guy gets excited when their knees touch as she thanks him again. He tries to keep calm, but he shows why he's not a Chad as he knocks and acts strange, which kills the vibe. The girl tries to be polite and continues to praise him. She has ulterior motives and plans to move on to Mash next. She tries to use her charm to thank him too. However, since the magicless student ain't no simp but a pure Sigma, he disregards her and tells her that he didn't do anything worthy of her thanks. This surprises her as it is revealed that she's using a spell to make men fall for her and it's not working on Mash. She decides and adds more magic to the spell, and it still doesn't work. She gives up and moves to the next part of the plan. She begins to tell Dot her sob story of how Iron keeps threatening her because he wants to utilize her special type of magic. She seals things when she starts to cry. Dot immediately stands up, promising to beat him to a pulp. Iron overhears and confronts him about his statement. He attacks them, but the redhead dodges with his new bae. Mash also evades easily, but Dot is the one who steps forward to take on the villain, but Iron sees him as cringy. He promises to give a reality check on the pecking order before he can finish. Dot goes on the offensive with a powerful explosion attack. He then follows with a rapid fire and finishes things with a giant explosion that even creates the signature mushroom. All the while, Mash casually eats a cream puff as Dot brags, thinking that he has won the fight. Things quickly move to Lance, who has found Lemon and Finn, who are happy that he's around to save them. Back to the fight, Dot is shocked to see that Iron protected himself. His attack couldn't penetrate. The second year retaliates with a powerful earth attack that does big damage to the redhead. However, it knocked Mash's cream puff out of his hands. The magicless student pauses for a moment as Iron insults. One can tell that he's not happy that his cream puff is on the floor. From the expression on his face, you know Iron is a goner. Things continues when Barrett recovers from the attack he just received from Iron. He internally acknowledges that there is a big discrepancy between their magic power favoring the older student. He tries to assess the current situation, looking over to Mash, who is still in shock that his cream puff was knocked from his hand. From the blank look on his face, Barrett doesn't think that he will be of any help, so he begins to rack his brain to come up with a strategy to get the girl out of this situation safely. Iron helps him out by proposing a little game after commenting on what a letdown the redhead is as an opponent. The double-line magic user tells them that he's willing to give them one chance. If Barrett and Mash can endure 5 hits from his magic, he will leave the Dismal alone. Iron even decides to follow the school rules and bet 1 silver coin. The girl expresses her worry about him taking such a bad deal, but Barrett interrupts her and immediately accepts the terms without hesitation. The girl continues to protest, but the redhead assures her that he will be fine since it's only 5 hits. Iron corrects him, stating that Mash also has to take 5 hits too. Barrett disputes this condition as the magicless student has nothing to do with their altercation. Their senior warns him that he doesn't get to decide. The redhead agrees, and to Mash's shock, Barrett decides to take his hits too. Even Iron lets out a whistle impressed by his guts and wonders if he can take 10 hits. Barrett feels like he's responsible for antagonizing the fight, so he must see it through solo. Mash respects his resolve for now and watches on as Barrett spreads himself ready for the first hit. Iron casts the first strike in a gremlin manner, which knocks Barrett back, causing organic red paint to spill out of his mouth. From the power behind that hit, he knows he is in trouble. He falls to his knees for a moment, but quickly gets back up to take the next blow as Iron laughs. The girl watches in horror as he hits him with the rest of the prescribed blows. After the 9th, Iron is a little surprised that he's still standing even though he's a little bloody. The redhead smirks as he thinks about the tears the girl shed while telling them how Iron was harassing her. He is determined not to let those tears go to waste. As a reward for enduring 9 hits, Iron decides that the last one will have significantly more power than the rest. Barrett takes it head on and is sent flying back as he crashes to the ground. The senior is happy with his handiwork as the redhead lies there unmoving. He begins to mock, but suddenly stops when Barrett gets back up as he confidently states that he's still standing after 10 hits. He stumbles over to Iron hoping that he will keep his promise, but he collapses before getting to him. Iron continues mocking him for thinking he could still stand after taking clean hits from his magic. Barrett pleads to Mash to take the girl and run while he figures a way to resolve this with Iron. The ratty senior hits the redhead with another strike, clearly showing that he has no honor. The redhead pleads again for Mash to save the girl, but her voice interrupts him this time as she calls him an idiot, which takes him by surprise. She comments that she knows that he's under her charm spell, but his behavior reeks of desperation. Iron feels that's a bit harsh as he jokingly tells her not to say that as she makes her way over to him, revealing that they are working together. Barrett genuinely looks heartbroken as they mock him for his delusion of thinking he's a main character. Ironically, he is one of them. He begins to get a little frustrated when they are relentless with the ridicule. Iron laughs with his mouth wide open, so Mash shuts it with a cream puff. The magicless student feels like the duo has gone far enough. He finally steps forward, stating that it's his turn to take the 10-hit challenge. He points at Iron before pointing down while describing him as a scumbag, provoking his senior to come at him. Iron just stares at him in shock as cream drips down his chin. All the while, Lance, Lemon, and Finn
bakasitoma bagala sitooka yange kubanga erezeddwa ate nga yategeka okwambalwa wa ekiseera libadde likalaba ddala nakyusa naye nga tajenti yalayisi nalina kwoza buli kimu emirundi ebiri sasaalina kyakola naddeyo ku erero kubanga bulijjo nkula ebibamu ebiyonjo olwaazalumu sasabagala ate omwana gwange gwatandula nnyo okusinga bwe gwali
lacks a little after defeating a monster. Lance is a little worried about Mash, but the other two are confident that he'll be fine. The top student in their class explains that there are different types of magic users. For example, white mages excel at scholarship and support magic, while red mages excel at combat. Mash has been mostly facing the former so far. However, any red mage past their first year is a tough opponent with that alone, but to add the double liner's natural enhancements, there will be some that are equal to or even stronger than Mash. Iron could be one of those. Back to the fight, and the senior is amused by Mash's statement as he walks over and grabs Barrett. He comments on how he dislikes people like the two of them. He sees them as weak hypocrites that act tough and has the itch to crush these kinds of people so that they can snap out of their delusion. He prepares to slam Barrett to the ground for making his clothes dirty. Mash dashes and launches a punch, but Iron sees the attack coming and counters, which Mash barely dodges. It even draws a little residue from his cheek. Their senior laughs at the fact that Mash thinks he can win against someone who gained 2 gold coins during his first year. He brags that his base power is significantly stronger than theirs and hits Mash with multiple attacks. But the tables start to turn when Mash blocks one of his assaults and crumbles the rock. The magicless student begins to open and close his hands as he activates triceps magic. Iron finds this humorous since he has never heard of such magic, because it's straight cap. Mash tenses his fist while he dodges Iron's attacks, but as he gets closer to his target, the magicless student punches his way through the rocks and lands a punch right on Iron's face. The girl can't believe what she's seeing. Iron's face begins to leak as he comments that this shouldn't be happening as he earned 2 coins as a first year, and his magic is top tier among the second years. After his words of affirmation, he launches an assault, but Mash's hand is more tense than that famous Arthur meme as he casually walks toward it. He smashes through the spell and lands a shocking gut punch on Iron. The pain from the blow is written all over his face as he struggles to breathe. He falls to his knees and profusely vomits. With this second hit, he knows he can't win this fight, which shocks him. Mash towers over him as it is clear that he can't take another hit. The magicless student walks to the base of a tree and takes a seat like a boss, which confuses Iron. Mash alerts Iron that he's going to endure 10 hits since he thinks he's so much better than Barrett. Iron has a look of complete despair on his face as Mash informs him that he has 8 more to go. After giving him a moment to recover a little, the magicless student steps up to him again and asks if he's ready for his 3rd hit. The despair on his face only gets worse, which I didn't think was possible. The senior begins to panic as he will be dead if he takes any more. The guy fanatically thinks of a way out of this situation. The sound of a monster rushing towards them can be heard. Iron is surprised and ecstatic to see a monster with a star-shaped stone on its forehead. It is worth more than 1 silver coin. He plans to use it as an opportunity to escape as Mash fights it, but that plan is quickly shattered when Mash throws it away like a bad smell to everyone's shock. He apologizes, telling it that he's busy at the moment, The star on the forehead lands near him to be retrieved later. Iron can't believe his eyes. The magicless student tells his senior that he kind of feels bad for him, so he will stop his attacks. Iron doesn't say a word as he holds his head in defeat. Mash then turns to the girl. She starts to panic as she never imagined Iron would lose, so he turns to her damsel in distress, stating that he forced her to do everything. Mash rushes over to her and hugs her from the back, assuring her that everything is going to be okay. She has a smug look on her face, thinking that she has Mash caught by her charm. She realizes that it's not the case when the magicless student changes his grip around her. He then proceeds to suplex her textbook style, knocking her out instantly. Mash really living that equality life. Barrett can't believe what he just witnessed and concludes that Mash has some screws loose. After the test, everyone regroups and Lemon is very worried seeing Mash a little beat up. He assures her that it's nothing. Lance concludes that he fought against Iron. Finn is impressed that he managed to defeat an upper-class man. Barrett watches on as Mash's friends give him hype. The magicless student realizes that the red hair is a little down based on what the girl did to him, so he's happy when Lemon rushes over to him to show concern for his injuries too. Barrett falls for her and begins to act strange. The redhead then turns to Mash and officially thanks him for the help, but Mash comments that that is completely out of character for him. This annoys Barrett, who threatens to end Mash as it took a lot for him to say those words. Lance interrupts their little fight to inform Mash that he was targeted. He has heard rumors that Dorm Lang is hunting for coins, especially those from Adler Dorm. Iron must have picked a fight because of that. Lang is a dorm made up of the upper crust and their cronies. Over there, they value birthright above all else. These students will go to extreme lengths to prevent the lesser-born from getting into the Bureau of Magic. Lance feels like the great war for the coins against the Magia Lupus, who are a group of Lang elites, has begun. Lemon and Rin are a little scared to hear this. Meanwhile, Mash is not taking the whole situation seriously. The guy's pocket begins to glow gold as the 5 coins in his pocket come together to make a single gold coin. Barrett tries to make fun of Mash, but he uses the light to blind him. Mash doesn't see the point in the different dorms and has a flashback to their version of the sorting hat ceremony. In this version, students hold an ancient bone creature that reads the person's magic and mind and assigns them a dorm based on both. Mash was a difficult one as all he was thinking about was cream puff, so the creature put him in Adler. Lance gets back to matters at hand as he explains that the Magia Lupus are 7 distinguished students. Iron was just one of their lackeys. They have been aggressively grabbing coins to sway who the Divine Visionary will be, and since Mash has a gold coin, that makes him prime target, so Lance advises that he keep his distance from Lang, and that he should always move with dormmates whenever possible. Mash throws his advice out the window the following day when he gets lost alone looking for his next class. He comes across a double door and goes through his usual predicament on whether to push or pull to open the door. All the while, Iron has been punished by the leader of the Magia Lupus for losing a coin to Adler Dorm. The guy refuses his request for one more chance and turns him into a doll that goes and stands next to others who failed them. They are interrupted by Mash, who breaks their door as he wasn't sure on how to open it. He alerts the leader that he is holding and talking to a doll. The triple liner glares at Mash as he thanks him for bringing it to his attention. The story continues as Mash makes his way further into the Lang stronghold. The leader of Magia Lupus, named Abel, immediately figures that the person standing before him is the first-year student that has the gold coin. Oblivious to the danger he has just strolled into, Mash confirms the triple liner's suspicions. Abel then proceeds to ask the magicless student if he wishes to become a Divine Visionary. Mash informs him that he only wants to achieve so that he can live a peaceful life with his family. Abel calls him misguided before beginning to explain his stance. The guy believes that the Divine Visionaries are the artisans of their world and act as the vessels of God's divinity. With that in mind, those who are not of noble blood lack the metal necessary to shoulder such a burden. Mash is interested to know if Abel feels like he's worthy. The triple liner states his intention not only to become a Divine Visionary, but to also return the world to its rightful form. To him, humans have only flourished because the species tirelessly pillage and devour those who are weaker. However, if one looks at society now, it rather shelters the weak. With the system of championing equality and compassion, Abel finds this new stance to be nonsense and wants the harsh reality of the world to be restored, where the strong prey on the weak till they are weeded out, resulting in the prospering of the superior beings. The whole explanation goes over Mash's head as he concludes that Abel also wants to live in peace. The other members of the Magia Lupus look on confused and wonder if the guy was listening at all. Abel is so offended that he takes Mash's response as hostility. The magicless student formally apologizes and informs him that he didn't intend to offend. The leader will only allow him to go in exchange for his gold coin, but Mash bluntly refuses. Abel feels like he has no right, so he attacks with his newly made puppet. Mash dodges with ease and counters with a leg-driven suplex. This snaps the threads connected to the puppet, which deactivates the spell, turning the iron back to normal, but he lies there unconscious. Mash looks to Abel to inform him that his assault wasn't very challenging. This prompts him to launch another assault using a larger puppet. It apprehends Mash quicker than Khabib submitting McGregor. The Magicless student notes that this one is a lot stronger than the last. The puppet uses one of its many hands to retrieve Mash's gold coin from his pocket and flicks it to Abel, who catches it. The puppet then throws the Magicless student into one of the pillars like a useless cabbage. As he slouches to the ground, the leader comments on how he will put the gold coin to better use. Mash recovers shortly after and apologizes for his earlier comment about him not being a challenge. As he walks, he accidentally steps on iron. He stops the fight to inform the leader that he's taking the unconscious guy to the nurse's office. This perplexes Abel that he's giving up the gold coin so easily. Mash corrects him that he's prioritizing the injured. As he reaches the door, he turns to Abel and informs him that no matter how strong the leader is, he has no intention to lose to him. The look in his eyes, coupled with the statement, catches everyone's attention. His silhouette disappears as he excuses himself. Abel is taken aback by his overwhelming confidence and wonders if it's because he's simply thoughtless or if there is more to him. This question is answered perfectly when he opens his hands expecting to find a gold coin, but he is greeted with a button from one of his puppets. All the while, one of the fangs of Magia Lupus, called Love, stands there in a cold sweat as she feels like she just witnessed something unfathomable. It is only revealed as she explains that when the puppet flung the coin, Mash ripped off its button with his mouth and spat it with tremendous force and accuracy, causing it to collide with the coin midair, taking its place. As the coin floated off course, the Magicless student sucked the coin up using the power of his lungs. The guy did all this in an instant. She refuses to believe it. Abel smirks as he finds what just happened interesting. Mash holds his coin while commenting how close he was to losing it. He quickly takes Iron to the infirmary. After being tended to, the troublemaker regains consciousness and jets up surprised that he's back to normal, although he has some amnesia spanning the time he was a doll. As he wonders how he returned to normal, he notices Mash at the end of his bed aggressively repping out some crunches that work the exterior obliques. Since Mash is watching over him, Iron quickly figures that he was the one who brought him in. However, he's confused because they are supposed to be...
Pampers is the best diaper for Silas's delicate skin. It provides protection against rash with its new lotion, olive oil. I only trust Pampers for my babies. Try it now.
Mash just states that when someone is in trouble, so is everyone, but he bites his tongue before he can complete his statement. He gets changed back into his uniform and then leaves after seeing that Iron has recovered. The troublemaker repeats Mash's words as it seems like it had a profound impact on him. Meanwhile, back at Adler's dorm, Barrett and Lance converge in Mash and Finn's room, and the two have an instant stare-off. Lance wonders what the redhead wants in the room before commenting on his new hairstyle. Barrett bluntly calls it a makeover, but from his muttering, he's done it to appeal to Lemon. Finn is more confused that the two have chosen his room to have this argument. Barrett ignores his complaints as he analyzes Lance's face. He concludes that he's above average while also being tall. Barrett therefore expresses his dislike for him, concluding that he's living life on easy mode because of his physical blessings. The guy is salty as he gestures rudely to him. Finn can see this escalating, so he begins to complain again. The two ignore him as they exchange insults and draw their wands ready to start throwing spells in the room. Finn begins to cry as he pleads for them to take their beef outside. As the two square up, Mash interrupts with his classic door breaking. He overheard everything and asks the two troublemakers to fight outside to prevent them from breaking their valuables. Finn and Barrett find this extremely contradictory as he just broke his room door in the process of entering. The redhead forgets about his beef as he presents Finn and Mash with a gift which confuses them. He explains that it is customary to bring something when one visits someone's house. This takes Finn by surprise as it shows that Barrett may have a good upbringing despite him acting like a ruffian. Mash just casually watches on while eating his cream puff. Lance gets a little serious as he scolds everyone for their complacency. They need to strategize ways to acquire more coins. The redhead is only interested in getting a girlfriend at the moment. Finn notices that the group's goals don't align at all, but this changes soon when Lemon farcically enters the room to report some big news. She pauses and has a moment when she notices that she's the only female in the room. She regains her composure as she asks them all to come with her. She leads them to the magic scale that displays how many gold coins each dorm holds. She She points out that Lang's dorm has the most gold coins at 15 while the other two only have 1. Since the start of the school year, everyone knows that Lang has been aggressively hunting for coins. Currently, the upperclassmen of Adler dorm who are capable of stopping them are away on off-campus internships. Lang dorm is blood purists with an exclusionary ideology, and if things keep up like this, they will produce the divine visionary for that year, which would not be good for society. To make matters worse, the Orchid dorm is only interested in research, which means that it is up to Alder to put a stop to Lang's plans. Barrett is thinking about how Sweet Lemon is for breaking the situation down for them. His dreams are shattered when she flirtatiously pleads with Mash to try hard. Lance knows that means they have to go on the offensive and start challenging the students in Lang for coins. The other two are on board with that plan as they stand up with confidence. Later on, Mash makes his way to the Alpen to clean up and tend to them for 1 week as punishment for attacking the vice principal. Lance joins him just as he's about to begin. The Bluehead points out that the Lang students are likely to target him since he's the holder of their only gold coin. His suspicions are proven right when Olor and Shinri from the Magia Lupus ominously approach the barn. They announce their presence when Olor casts a water spell that drops Mash in a dimension full of water. The guy struggles to recover as he reveals that he can't swim. Shinri launches his giant shuriken at Lance, who dodges. They officially introduce themselves as the 6th and 7th Fong respectively and state their aim to retrieve their gold coin. As per the school rules, they both place a gold coin on the line just before the battle begins, with the agreement that the winner takes all. Olor then casts a spell that turns him into a shark before diving into the water world with Mash. The other two stay on land as Shinri wastes no time when he launches another attack. Lance has already figured out that his opponent uses his magic to control the weapon. His gravity magic is a good counter. However, just as he's about to use it, he realizes that the owls are within the attack area, so he pauses. This gives Shinri the chance to attack again, which grazes him. Lance tries to use his magic once more, but he freezes. A vision of his little sister condemning him for getting the poor owls involved pops into his head. Just like his leader, the 7th Fong also believes in survival of the fittest. He releases a double shuriken attack and Lance takes it head-on as dodging would put the owls behind him in danger. Shinri notes that his opponent is from the prestigious Crown family based on his wand. They are famed for their gravitation magic. He also heard rumors that the eldest son ran off, so he guesses that Lance is that guy and calls him weak. He then begins to talk down to him, but Lance uses his gravity spell to make one of the shovels fall, but Shinri pays no mind to it. He's only thinking about how defeating someone from the Crown family will cement his place as a superior being. He only realizes that something is off when he throws his final attack. All the owls are in the corner of the barn feeding on a sack of seeds. Before he can react, Lance shows him his true powers as he casts his gravity spell. The shovel falling was to open the bag to lure the owls over. It now dawns on him that Lance didn't attack all this time due to the owls, and not because he was weak. His best attack is easily nullified with the gravity spell, which simultaneously pins him to the ground. The difference in their magic power is overwhelming despite them both being double-liners. Lance informs him that he has the noble goal of saving his sister, so their magic can't be equal to someone who fights for selfish reasons. All the while, Olor looks for Mash in the water. He is surprised to see him swim past at a tremendous speed. He is certain that the fastest humans can only swim a maximum of 10 kilometers per hour, but Mash is moving significantly faster as he jets past him a couple more times. The magicless student thanks him for giving him the chance to learn a new skill. Olor is the one who feels like he's being hunted. He gets annoyed and casts a spell that transforms him further, but it doesn't help as Mash swims while punching him back to the normal world. With both their opponents defeated, Lance retrieves their gold coin, and the Alder boys comment on how easy defeating the Magia Lupus will be if they are on this level. The masked member hears their trash talk and confronts them about it as they turn. He moves at great speed in front of the duo. Mash and Lance sense the danger, but his gravity spell doesn't work as the masked guy's eye glows. Mash notices the menacing aura around the opponent and performs one of his quick attacks, but the guy dodges. He makes it known to them that he mainly came for his allies and assures them that they will meet again. After that encounter, Mash and Lance take their comments back. As the new foe leaves, his mask cracks, showing that Mash's attack landed a little. Based on this, the guy notes that Mash did that without magic and believes that he's the same type as him. The story continues at the academy during sleeping hours in the hallway, where a student is vexed at the masked guy for taking his golden coin. He stands in a battle-ready form, asking his opponent if he really thinks he can take a valuable item from him without any repercussions. The student, whose name is Rhodes Emus, also known by his epithet the Magma Master of Orchid dorm, casts an overwhelming-looking spell towards the masked guy, but he activates his special eye and then proceeds to decorate his blade with the blood of the Magma Master. Mask Guy then roasts him for being incredibly weak before walking off and removing the blood from his sword. We then cut to a mouse vibing and enjoying some nibbles before it is scared away by a life-size doll walking uncontrollably. The next day, Lance gives some insight into the organization Magia Lupus, who are a group made up of the elite students in the Landorm. Whilst Mash is preparing what I presume to be cream puffs, Lance tells him that not only are the members of Magia Lupus magically talented, but they also have high self-esteem, which undeniably makes them the top students in the academy. Lance has the idea of hunting them down since he does not want to play a defensive game against students who possess such abilities. But the issue with his line of thought is that the school has decided to hide all the dorms' locations from each other to encourage some kind of competition between them. He asks Mash about what he thinks of his idea of trying to figure out their location so that they can take their coins, but Mash is in his happy world perfecting his art of cream puff making. So he responds with one word, which makes Lance wonder if he was even listening this whole time. Nevertheless, he gives Mash their dorm robe, which he struggles to wear. Lance hopes that wearing the robe will make him more conscious of the fact that he actually belongs to a dorm. As they converse, Lemon barges in to interrupt them and informs the boys that Tom is in big trouble. However, Mash tells her that Tom's issue can wait since his cream puffs are still being cooked, but Lemon is adamant that they go see him. After arriving at his location, Lemon notices that he looks completely drained. Tom cracks a cold sweat and informs them that he does not remember what happened to him. The only thing he knows is that when he woke up, he found himself bedbound in the infirmary. And since he lives his life at full speed, he usually falls asleep without dreaming, so morning comes relatively quickly for him. But on the night he collapsed, he dreamt that he was restrained within a dark box, unable to speak. Even though he was fully conscious, he remained in that state for hours. Due to the tense situation, Mash removes a cream puff and begins to munch. Lemon asks the captain if he is feeling okay physically. Although he is alright, he feels a bit woozy, and on top of that, he has temporarily lost his ability to use magic and doesn't perceive any magical energy within himself. He feels as though someone has sucked out all of his energy. Lance looks behind and sees that this same condition is the reason why the other students are also in the infirmary. He wonders what exactly is going on and why all this is happening whilst the headmaster has been summoned to the Bureau of Magic. All of this gets Lemon concerned, so she gives Mash a toy and informs him that it is a good luck charm, so he should keep it with him at all times. She also tells him not to do anything risky. Later that evening, Mash and Lance decide to execute their plans of finding the base of operation for Magia Lupus. Lance has reasons to believe that they are behind the current issues in the school. Mash is more concerned about them walking around the academy after hours, but Lance doesn't really see an issue with that. Barrett comes out of nowhere uninvited and chimes in to say that all should be okay if they apologize later. Finn also joins the party only because he does not want to be left alone in his room. The blue-haired student isn't too happy about them tagging along and thinks that it is a bad idea, but Mash feels sorry for them, so he suggests that they allow the newcomers to join in their search for coins. As the group of four make their way through the corridors, Simp Boy Barrett spots Lemon and begins to simp so hard for her that his nose starts to ooze a liquid that is the same color as his hair. He decides to call out to her, but Lance holds his mouth shut as he suspects that something is not quite right. Surely enough, he is correct as Lemon starts to breakdance like a zombie and then turns around with a face that resembles a doll. The boys manage to hide in time before she could spot them, so she continues her journey to wherever the hell she is going. The blue-haired student recognizes that she is under some sort of magic spell and postulates on what they should do, but Finn cuts him off and sees that she is heading in a particular direction, so the boys decide to chase her down under Mash's request to see exactly where she is going. However, when they turn to the same corner Lemon navigated, they are met with a dead end whilst she is nowhere to be seen. As they stand there confused by her disappearance, Finn swears he hears something that sounds like a creaking, but Simp Boy becomes irate and yells at him to stop being so scared, but he soon hears the exact same sound, so they both run over to Mash and begin to cry on his shoulders. Lance tells them to calm down and casts a spell that reveals a secret door, but he alerts them that that is as far as his magic can go. He is unable to open the door. Barrett tries to blast the threshold with his fire magic, but not even a scratch is left on the door. It is Mash's turn, so he improvises by hitting the ground with his bare fist, which opens it slightly. He then stops it from closing by holding it with the sword and armor, before stamping on the sword, which blows the door completely off and out of bounds. When making his way into the opening, he remembers Lemon's words for him not to do anything risky. He apologizes for not keeping his promise before proceeding down the stairs. While walking through the hallways, Lance notes that with their hideout being underground, it gives them an advantage. Barrett cuts him off with a loud cry after seeing a light which leads them to a battle arena. The group are welcomed by a caller who makes an appearance in a burst of spectacular flames. He notifies them that where they stand is an ancient dueling field so old that he doubts the current teachers of the school have knowledge of its existence. One of them asks him if he is part of Magia Lupus, but he denies it and tells them that he is merely there as a request from the third fawn to eliminate intruders. The guy informs them that if they wish to proceed, then coins have to be wagered. Lance accepts his challenge and steps up to the plate, but Barrett stops him from moving forward as he presents himself to take on their opponent. His reasoning for wanting to fight this student is because he hates the fact that the guy is good looking. Barrett even gets incredibly angry and jealous when he finds out that his enemy has a fan club of females. The guy roasts Barrett by saying that there is no way he can lose to a person who lacks both a good face and good brains. He then gets ready for battle when he activates his plant-based magic. Elsewhere in the kingdom, the headmaster has arrived at the Bureau of Magic, which is the highest legal authority in the magic realm. The bald man apologizes for calling him over so suddenly. He then goes on to inform Walbert that 6 notorious inmates who were on death row have escaped from Hecatrice. All the guards who were guarding the prison were eliminated without mercy, and the prisoners were only able to achieve such a feat with the help of a particular somebody known as Innocent Zero. We cut back to the battle between jealous Simp Boy and the handsome student. Barrett initiates by launching a solid fire spell, but the guy easily dispels it and counters with a reaching attack which the redhead dodges. He wants to know if they are the group responsible for defeating Silva, but Barrett shyly admits that he got the crap beaten out of him. The guy is disappointed that Silva, who is a double liner, could lose. He feels like magic capabilities was wasted on someone like him. The guy then warns Barrett that he is a much tougher opponent, so he shouldn't be taken lightly. But hearing this only makes the redhead more excited as he vows not to lose. He raises his wand and launches a series of spells that surrounds his opponent. He warns the guy to watch his step because the magic that surrounds him is a conditional spell and it has 5 times the normal explosion power. The guard is sure that someone like him would never fall for such a trap, so he releases a spell that flies towards Barrett, who tries to counter with his own flurry of attacks. But his fire spell is weaker, so he gets overpowered and is caught in an entanglement. The guy then pierces Simp Boy with multiple thorns that immobilizes his body. He then issues some more roasting to Barrett before telling him that the next move will finish him off. As he manipulates his vines to slam him to the ground, it makes contact with the spell and triggers a massive explosion. Barrett notifies him that the magic he cast earlier is nothing more than a time bomb that sets off after a period has elapsed. He retrieves his wand while his opponent stands there in shock that he could lose to such an unpleasant-looking person. When the blast is over and the dust settles, the guy sits there defeated in an attractive pose which Barrett admires. Not long after their victory does the ground below them turn to quicksand and swallows them. They all land in different locations apart from Finn and Barrett, who fall together and are confronted by 2 Magia Lupus members. One of them is Love Cute, who is the 5th Fawn, and the other is Milo Genius, who is the 4th Fawn. When Finn sees that both their opponents are double liners, he quivers in fear and cries whilst holding onto Barrett, but his colleague tells him not to give up before the battle has even began, because if they can get through this, it will be a super underdog victory. Elsewhere, Lance drops and instantly feels an ominous presence. He is greeted by a double liner who is the 3rd Fawn of Magia Lupus, known as Worth Madel. He is disappointed to not have Mash as his opponent. Speaking of Mash, he falls in a fashion only befitting to him as he stands in a dark room. He wonders where everyone is when his thoughts are interrupted by a voice that soon leads to the room being illuminated. He is confronted by the masked guy once more, who introduces himself as Abyss Razor, 2nd Fawn of Magia Lupus. He reveals that he is well aware of Mash being magicless. Although Mash tries to deny it, Razor tells him not to worry since he too is in the same boat. He also says that he has his own reasons for being in the academy. They both take their fighting stance ready for battle. Things continue with Madel explaining his worldview that being worthlessly weak is inexcusable. Lance responds by casting his gravity spell, hoping to slam Madel to the ground, thus ending the fight quickly as he doesn't have time to be Madel's playmate. The number 3 quickly uses his magic to turn his land zone into mud, allowing him to enter his mud dimension unhurt. Lance looks around the battle area as he tries to anticipate where his opponent will spring out from. He appears behind him, commenting on how much of a surprise it is that Lance uses gravity magic. The bluehead turns and is faced with multiple cones of his opponent. They all dash toward him simultaneously. However, Lance keeps his composure and activates his gravity magic, which crushes the mud clones before they can get any closer. Madel enters his mud's world and launches a surprise spike attack using the residual mud. but Lance is no slouch and dodges it with ease. After seeing the clone at work, he immediately figures that he must concentrate on defeating the original. To end things quickly, he decides to attack the whole field, but Mal evades and emerges behind him. The guy quickly launches a spell that restricts Lance's movement before he can react. The number 3 then fires mud cannonballs at his target. He gets a few direct hits, which leaves the blue hair a little disheveled. Mal begins to comment on the Crown family that Lance hails from and acknowledges his lineage. However, he calls him wasted talent because he's not with Langsdorff before offering him a chance to join the Magia Lupus. The number 3 takes a cheeky shot stating that he would fit in nicely in the lower ranks. This would give him a better chance for his magic to flourish. The elites believe that growth depends on who one surrounds themselves with. So if he surrounds himself with the garbage in Alderstorm, then he will become one of them. On the other hand, Magia Lupus is full of talent and resources, so his skill will see a significant improvement. Lance has a different outlook, feeling that his conviction is not superficial enough for the environment to have such a drastic impact. He rather views the Magia Lupus as second-rate students, but Maddle gets amused by the comment. Before he can even retaliate, Lance casts a sideways gravity spell which sends him to fly into the wall, but he uses his mud magic to absorb the impact as he finds himself in his little world. The number 3 feels like he has the upper hand since gravity magic needs a place to slam the opponent into. The smug look on his face is quickly wiped away when Lance fires rocks at high speed into the mud. This forces Maddle to dash out of his safe space before he's pelted into submission. Lance believes that based on the number 3's logic, his environment is the superior one. This triggers Maddle to enter an internal monologue as he believes that because he was born with 2 lines, the resulting higher magic capacity makes him greater than the average flunky. He has been at this prestigious academy since his middle school days, so his joining of the Magia Lupus was inevitable. While in the group, he is receiving an education that is only reserved for Lane's best. With all of this in mind, he assures himself that he's strong. The upperclassman finds Lance to be cocky for a first year and decides to take things to another level. Maddle takes a controversial potion, which is the concentrated magical essence extracted from the student they have been attacking. This gives an incredible boost in magical power, and Lance picks up on the blatant doping. Someone please call the anti-doping agency because this guy is trying to pass the concoction as liquid chicken rice and broccoli. Maddle casts the second stage of his spell, which causes his mud to fabricate a giant devil-like creature. He explains that all magic has tiers. This second level is a different form of magic than what is used by single-liners. It is higher tier magic that only certain double-liners are allowed to cast. The guy gets a flashback to his father informing him that his achievement determines his worth and only those who have an aptitude for magic have that worth. This drives him to obsessively study and practice magic. Currently, achievement and strength are what sustains him, and he feels like he earned his present position. He believes that because Lance associates with lesser bloodlines, he will never achieve the level of magic that is about to defeat him. But blue-haired Chad easily dodges the attack and tells Maddle that he doesn't understand anything. The people that he calls flunkies are just as capable and can even be learned from. This is exemplified as Lance activates the second stage of his gravity spell. He calls the summon monolith's torture pole as they surround Maddle and his beast. The pillars exert a strong gravitational pull toward themselves. This means that the monster in the middle is being pulled by gravity in all directions. Lance drops the final pull from above, which rips the mud beast apart. Maddle stands there in disbelief that his strongest spell was so easily defeated. He gets another flashback of his dad telling him that entering the Bureau of Magic alone will not make him worthy of being his son. He will still be worthless to him. Till this day, his father is waiting for him to show something which will make him worthy. As he calls himself worthless, Lance returns Maddle's book to him and notices that it has had a lot of use. The blue-haired also reveals that his parents measured his worth based on social standing more than anything else. Judging by the number 3's words and actions, Lance knows that he too was raised in such an environment. He doesn't agree with that worldview, but he respects all the effort Maddle has put in to live to that high expectation. This strikes a chord with him. As Lance walks away, the Magia Lupus member tries to downplay his happiness that someone finally respects him. All the while, Mash removes his school uniform in preparation to fight Razor and hops a few times before dashing and landing a kick. But the masked guy somehow blocks the attack with his sword. He counters with a speedy attack that Mash struggles to comprehend. Razor informs the magicless student that he can't win against him. The secret behind his superhuman speed is revealed as he stands on a magic arrow like some bootleg Silver Surfer that accelerates him like he's on Mario Kart, allowing him to slice Mash Mash in an instant. After showing a glimpse of his skill, Razor asks his opponent to give up or he will not show any remorse if he chooses to carry on. Before he can finish his warning, Mash interrupts, telling him that all his waffling doesn't matter. The masked guy gets annoyed when he remembers that Mash is going through all of this so that he can live in peace with his family. He finds the magicless student's reasoning revolting. Razor feels like their situation is similar. However, his ideas of living happily ever after is where they differ. Based on this, he knows that Mash must be blessed to have the people he has around him and pleads for him to show his best as they fight. To up the stakes of the fight, he shows Mash that Lemon has been strapped to a device that drains magic powers. He informs him that in about 30 minutes, her magic power will be completely drained, making her lose her ability to use magic. Razor hints that he knows that Mash can't use magic as he states that she will be just like him. Mash feels like if he's bold enough to say those words, then he must be ready for his mask to be broken into pieces. Razor takes his words as a challenge and promises not to hold back. He places his acceleration arrows surrounding Mash and dashes around, slicing him with ridiculous speed. All the magicless student can do is cover his vital areas. The assault ends when Razor lands a stab on his abdomen. When he tries to remove the blade, he's unable to because Mash tenses his abs. The guy allowed the attack to hit him so that he can close the distance between the two of them. He grabs Razor by his robe and headbutts his mask, destroying it like he foretold. Number 2 tries to cover his face with his hands, but Mash notices his red eye and comments that it's bloodshot. Razor is surprised that he doesn't know what it means. Mash apologizes for getting it wrong. The guy alerts him that he doesn't need to apologize and explains that his eye is called the Evil Eye. It is the eye of the devil which temporarily disables the magic of all who fall under its gaze. Since magic is everything in this world, such an ability makes him a target of hate. Hearing this makes Mash a little sad that he can't use his eye ability on him. Razor assures him that all is well, but outlines that he's the natural enemy of all magic users, so he has been feared and despised his whole life. Even his parents have the same sentiments, but he feels like someone as blessed as Mash can't possibly understand how that feels. He comments that some people in this world should have never been born. He too can use the high level of his magic ability as he activates his second. This creates a force field around them both. A red arrow that points down appears on Mash's abdomen. Before he can process its meaning, Razor dashes at him and cuts him several times as Mash throws a punch in slow motion. He sees that Mash is surprised by his lack of speed and explains that the field decreases the momentum of everyone else within it and grants that speed to him. He darts towards the magicless student and begins to attack him with an intense barrage of cuts. As Razor bolts to land the finishing blow, Mash slowly counters by smashing the ground, which splits the floor into two, creating a tunnel. With nowhere for Razor to maneuver, it gives Mash the chance to land a counter that shatters the number 2's blade. Razor realizes what is going on and tries to retreat, but the magicless student steps on his foot, preventing him from moving. Mash lands a devastating punch to his gut that sends him crashing through his barrier. This gives him the chance to perform a damaging combination. Even Razor can see that they are completely different levels as he falls to the floor. The number 2 refuses to take his loss as he reminds himself of his reason for living. He activates his accelerate ability one last time and dashes towards Mash, but the magicless student stops his blade with his bare hand and counters with a backhand that Will Smith would happily come and learn how to do. Mash continues his assault with a barrage of high-quality attacks, sending Razor flying all over the place like a rag doll. The final move shatters the barrier as he suplexes him to the ground. Razor lies there in a crater, unable to move, as he wonders how his life would be like if he was to be born normal. He reveals that he was still a young child when his eye manifested, and his parents were shocked. He was blessed with the god's gift of magic as a double liner, while also cursed with the eye of the devil. Just like the markless children, they rejected his existence. His parents locked him in a cell to keep his situation hidden, and all that he was given was his cent meals. That was his life for a while, till one day his parents tried to end him. He suspects they must have run out of patience for having a child like him. He comments that he should have never been born. However, he established a new purpose when he found that Abel needed him. Even if he was just a useful tool, it was better than being hated, but as he sits there in defeat, he couldn't even meet that expectation. After hearing him out, Mash agrees that he has been blessed for having the life that he has had despite being born without magic. He can't even imagine what Razor has been through, but he believes that they could become friends. The number 2 calls him amenable, but predicts that Mash's attitude toward him will change too. Because of how kind Mash is, he pleads with him not to proceed further because he can't defeat Abel. During their first encounter, Abel is not using his true power. Mash interrupts him and thanks him for the warning, but he has every intention of fighting their leader. He also informs him that his attitude toward him will not change and hopes that they can share some thoughts in the future as he says goodbye. Things continue with Rain being directed by the principal via letter to check the basement. He reveals the secret door and proceeds down. All the while, Milo the fourth fawn leaves Love to take care of Barrett and Tim since they are single minors. She introduces herself before asking the two lads if they like her. This completely takes them by surprise as they stare at her with confusion. She doubles down on her question, but Barrett informs her that they barely know her, so how can they have such feelings for her? She then asks them if they think she's cute, so the redhead just concludes that she's the super manipulative type. Normal people would find that character trait to be repulsive, but he finds it attractive. However, he has his sights on Lemon, so he politely informs her that he's not interested. Hearing that he's in love with someone else gets her irate, so she attacks them with a wind spell. The lads conclude that she is emotionally unstable, and Barrett barely manages to defend the assault with an explosion spell. The redhead takes some damage as Love is a double liner, so she has immense raw magic power. Love shouts that all girls are born princesses, so they are supposed to be serenaded and served. Any guy who can't meet that standard can die in her mind. Based on that explanation, she asks them again if they like her. Barrett gives her the same answer, but before he can finish, she punches him with a wind attack that sends him flying. Love reveals that her dad gave her the go-ahead to end any guy who doesn't cherish her. Although Barrett is the father of all simps, he stands up disagreeing with her dad's statement. The guy acts on his viewpoint by shooting some fireballs at her. Love is confident that she can easily defend against it since her magic power is greater, but she is surprised to learn the attack was not aimed at her, but at the floor around her. It creates a smoke screen that blocks her vision. Love figures this out quickly and swiftly counters as he dashes for her wand. Barrett is knocked back again, which results in his headband coming off this time around. As he lands, Love mocks him for being too weak, stating that it is almost impossible for him to beat her. To further emphasize the bleakness of their situation, she discloses that Milo can turn the person that opened the underground door into stone. It takes effect approximately 2 hours after he begins to store energy, meaning if they don't defeat her and get to him in the next 30 minutes, Mash will turn to stone since he's the one that opened it. She casts a wind cage spell that attacks Barrett while ambushing him in a tornado. She feels sorry for Mash for having to put up with such weak friends, but she also has the sentiment that he deserves it for going up against the leader Abel. He is foolish for fighting against someone without knowing their true strength. Barrett can feel like he's losing his life as the wind rips him to the point that the pain can be felt in his skeleton frame. With the way things are going, he's going to need some milk for their bones. He knows that she outclasses him and concedes that there is nothing he can do about it. Barrett gets a flashback to when he was younger and a bit of a pushover. His peers try to take advantage of his non-confrontational manner by confiscating his new broom, but his older sister teaches the kids a little lesson with an explosion. When the kids scatter, she advises a young Barrett to fight for himself. Otherwise, he will feel guilty if he can't fight for that real friend that gets sad or angry on his behalf. Such people only come once in a lifetime, so he should never betray a friend like that. This segues into another flashback when Mash got angry when Iron and his accomplice were mocking Barrett after beating him. He too feels like he can't let Mash down, so he begins to fight against the tornado. Meanwhile, Love makes her way to a terrified Finn to finish him off. As she prepares to end him, Barrett breaks through the tornado. The redhead states that he can't let things end like this when she mocked his friends. Barrett has a cross on his forehead under the headband. Love has a look of fear on her face as she comments on the increase in his magic power. She tries to attack him with a wind spell, but he matches it perfectly on this occasion. As she wonders how this is possible, Love notices that cross on his forehead and states that she has heard about it before. The girl explains that some children are born with the warding cross on their foreheads. They are battle demons whose magic power amplifies when they are pushed past their emotional threshold. These individuals are called the Ira Cruz. He unleashes his barrage of gun explosions, calling her a scumbag, which is heavily inspired by MASH. The attack lands on Love. He makes it known to her that he doesn't like picking on girls, so he tells her to get lost. His kind gestures move Love to tears as she thanks him for his leniency. This shows that she has accepted her defeat. Finn is impressed that he was able to defeat the fifth fawn on his own, and is shocked that Barrett is a double liner. Just as Finn prepares to vocally congratulate his friend on the victory, Milo interrupts with a sudden attack, but Barrett rushes in and takes the hit, knocking Finn back down to safety. The fourth fawn steps up, berating Love for not being able to deal with what he sees as fodder. But low-key, both of them be looking like a bootleg Cosmo and Wanda. The redhead is not sure he can take on such a powerful opponent in his current condition. Love further points out that Milo is a prodigy as he is the only first-year student among the Magia Lupus. He launches a stone-head attack at the lads, but as they approach, a sword comes flying from the entrance and introduces itself without consent to his gut, instantly knocking him out of commission. Milo can't believe that his magic was broken so quickly. He looks up to see who launched such an attack, and genuine dread washes across his face when he sees the person. He wonders why such a person is in the basement. Milo reveals that Rain is a divine visionary. Barrett is also shocked to see their dorm's ace in their presence. Milo is intimidated that such a high-level mage has entered the fray. He tries to rationalize it, pointing out that Rain is still a student just like him. He knows that he doesn't stand a chance, so he tries to reason with him, but uses it as a cover to launch a sneak attack. But the ace just cuts it in half with ease. This only annoys Rain, who calls Milo a piece of trash before he summons a sea of blades. Faced with such overwhelming power, the fourth pawn wonders if Rain is a student. The newcomer rains out a hail of swords on him. Barrett watches in awe as he gets to witness just a glimpse of what a visionary is magically capable of. After seeing that, Love quickly removes her Magia Lupus merch and comments on how she wants to defect to Adler. At this point, Milo has been completely apprehended and just can't believe the difference in strength. As Rain steps up close to him, the first year tries to explain that he had no choice and pleads for forgiveness for not being able to resist Abel's pressure. The visionary has a mash-like unbothered facial expression as he kicks Milo in the stomach like Ronaldo taking a free kick, or like that guy on the Milo packaging. He begins to repeatedly kick and stomp on the poor guy as he comments that action is the most important thing in the world, not words. Rain doesn't even trust the words of scum like him and believes that it is best to teach Milo's type through pain. With this merciless lesson, they will never consider making the same mistake again. Barrett watches the one-sided beatdown and is just happy that he's on their side. The visionary stops for a moment and asks his juniors to get out of the basement. He will get the details out of Milo. They don't argue with the order and just leave as instructed. Finn reveals that Ryan is his older brother to Barrett's shock. Everyone leaves and so does the visionary. It seems like a character called Innocent Zero has his pawns at the school. He is certain that they are concealing their powers to hide. His thoughts are interrupted when he notices Mash approaching from behind with immense pressure around him, but he can't sense any magic coming from the cream puff eater. He suspects that Mash is one of Innocent Zero's men, so he stops to confront the magicless student. The visionary removes his wand as he notifies him that he will make the investigation quick. At this point, Mash is confused as to what is going on after Rain whips out a creature that measures Red's true magic power. Rain intends to use this to determine Mash's legit level, which will make clear if he's a student or an imposter. The creature brags that it has profiled the power of thousands of magic users. If he's a regular magic user, he will be let go. As soon as Mash expresses his reluctance to participate, Rain doesn't hesitate and fires one of his swords at him, but the magicless student blocks it with his 2 fingers. All the while, the creature begins to measure his magic power. Mash politely wants to know why he's suddenly attacking and warns him that that is dangerous and barbaric. Rain suspects that he didn't use magic. The power-measuring creature begins to get scared when its reading comes out as 0. It just takes it as a miscalculation. The visionary is a little surprised that the creature can't pick up any power. Rain decides to increase his attack percentage a little, which summons more blades. They quickly attack Mash again as it looks like they have pierced him. However, upon closer inspection, the magicless student uses it to make a chair to sit on. Rain is surprised that he managed to do such a thing. The creature does a second scan and it still comes out as 0. This confuses the creature to the point where it freezes, but the 0 number just proves to the visionary that Mash isn't using magic. It means that he is not one of Innocent Zero's men, but Rain wants to test him one more time. He increases his spell to 10% and fires at the cream puff eater. The spider watches on, commenting that Mash is finished because the visionary doesn't use this level against students. The monster is surprised to see Mash holding one of the swords and using it for practice swings before taking a bunting stance. As the blades jet towards him, the spider sweats in shock as Mash bunts all of Rain's attacks and comments on how dangerous that was. The visionary scoffs at what he has just witnessed before asking Mash for his name. When he gives his full government, he recalls the principal informing him of a new student and explains his unique situation. The old-timer complimented the strong heart of this freshman and pleads for Rain to look after him. The visionary apologizes for the rudeness when he realizes that he stands before that student. Mash doesn't accept his apology initially, but he relaxes a little when he's given a magic kerchief that will heal his wounds. The magicless student realizes that there are rabbits on it and assumes that Rain likes rabbits. The two blunt characters stare at each other for a moment before Mash thanks him for it. Rain warns him to be careful if he's going after Abel. Mash is surprised that he knows, but his senior informs him that the headmaster told him that Mash wanted to be a divine visionary. This will mean that he will naturally have to face Abel since the guy is one of the candidates to win it currently. His dull magic far exceeds what's required of a student. He admits being surprised that Mash could block his magic with his bare hands, but without any magic, he is sure that he's going to have a tough time. Mash tries to lie that he can use magic. Rain knows he's captain, so he just continues to explain that Abel plays the most in school, so defeating him will increase Mash's chance of becoming this year's divine visionary. Since their world has so many issues, Rain wants strong allies who can stand on their own. He tells Mash to achieve his goal even if it kills him. Rain casually leaves after his information dump. Mash thanks him and is confident that his senior is a good guy at heart. Mash proceeds to face Abel but breaks the door again while entering. The leader of the Magia Lupus comments on it as they prepare to fight. Things continue as the magic from the students that have been turned into puppet pools together to form a giant sphere of magical energy. Mash stands there as Abel admits that the magicless student surprised him by defeating Razor, as he thought that Rain was the only student capable of facing his evil eye. The boss of the Magia Lupus doubts that Mash is a better magic user than Rain, who is a divine visionary. He has another thought which gets Mash a little nervous, thinking that the guy has figured out his secret. Abel notices his reaction and wonders what the matter is. The magicless student tries to play cool as he pleads with Abel to carry on with his speculation. The Ling Dormays can see that Mash is capable, so he assumes that someone that superior would understand his worldview, that this world does not treat everyone equally. He earlier explained humans' beastly nature during their first encounter. The guy can't allow people who he deems as having inferior genes to exist. He feels like they are taking advantage of the powerful people's kindness, and he looks over to Mash, expecting him to have the same sentiments. Mash wants to clarify whether people who can't use magic are part of those with inferior genetics. Abel confirms this and goes as far as to say that they must dispose of them. This statement leaves Mash flabbergasted. He triples down as he includes underachievers and people who shelter the weak as trash. Merely segregating them from society is too kind, so he intends to change the system. Hearing this statement about sheltering the weak gives him a flashback to how Bernard risked everything to raise him. Mash was doing double backflips among other strange things as he was growing up in diapers. The magicless student concludes that Abel's way of thinking means that they cannot be friends. Since Mash doesn't agree, Abel calls him dense and has already sent his puppets to take out Mash. Love walks in just before the attack begins. She hides behind the door quickly as Mash dismantles the puppets that try to take him out. He notices that they have acid inside their bodies and quickly dodges the splash. Abel sarcastically warns him about the danger. Mash responds by flicking one of the heads from the broken puppet and using it like a bowling ball. It moves at such velocity that it destroys all the puppets rushing towards him in a single hit. Love watches mouth open as to what she just witnessed. Mash wants to revisit Abel's comment about inferior genes and asks that if he beats him, does that mean the Magia Lupus leader has inferior genes? Mash also wants to know where Lemon is, but Abel just dismisses his first question as he doesn't think that it is possible. He also tells the magicless student that he doesn't know who Lemon is at all. He only knows that he is receiving magical power from his victims. Mash is taken aback to hear that he is living his ideas. He summons 3 high-level puppets ready to show Mash that he is not on the level of the elitist. Love watches on with joy on her face, hoping that Mash takes the L, and so does the leader of the Magia Lupus. However, their little experiment comes to an end when the 3 puppets jet past Abel as they crash into the wall behind him. Abel immediately notices that Mash has gotten stronger since their last meeting. Mash just wants him to disclose where Lemon is if he wins, since by Abel's logic, the strong can take from the weak. After that crazy display, Abel comments on how Mash is more than just talk as he still addresses him like his subordinate. The magicless student takes the compliment. His safety is tested when Abel controls Mash's hands so that he will attack himself. The guy realizes that they are magic strings controlling his movement as he begins to strangle himself. He's suddenly freed as he wonders what that sensation was. Abel explains that he released him because the fight was getting too one-sided in his favor. In Abel's estimation, winning like that would be classless. He has a better idea as Finn walks onto the battlefield as a puppet. The leader confesses that he captured his friend and that he would make good entertainment, but he left Barrack because the guy was too injured to be of any use. Abel controls Finn as he looks forward to an interesting show. The puppet dual wields a mace and an axe. He attacks the magicless student, but he manages to block him. Abel threatens to break Finn apart if he breaks his rules. Mash is not allowed to show any resistance when Finn attacks. Like a sitting duck, he decides to accept the terms and conditions. This surprises Abel when he tests his resolve as Puppet Finn begins to attack Mash with the weapons. After a few attacks, the leader realizes that the weapons broke before the magicless student. From all his talking, Mash comments that Abel thinks he's a deep person. He further mocks him when he reveals the gold coin that Abel so desperately wants. He uses it to cut Finn free by flicking it. The coin jets past him before he can react. It does its job and then returns to Mash. The magicless student takes its return as the coin prefers him as its owner. Abel doesn't take to that disrespect kindly, so he captures Mash seriously with his strings, but the guy begins to brute force his way free. The leader tries to hold on, but his fingers begin to snap as Mash finally breaks free and dashes towards Abel. He lands a flying knee to his face. This causes him to activate his power, which starts to change Mash into a puppet. The leader is impressed that the magicless student forced him to cast his spell. As the transformation completes, he calls Mash's prey and gets closer to Gloat. With the guy unable to move, he casually reaches in his pocket for the gold coin, but he grabs a cream puff instead. This baffles Abel, but a sudden uppercut from Mash shocks him even more because his power is supposed to seal all movement of the person he turns into a puppet. He knows that the guy's movement must have been triggered by a spinal reflex, which is an involuntary movement that the body does to prevent it from being hurt. They are just surprised that he has such a reaction when people take his cream puff. That means the guy must have a serious attachment to the pastries. After taking such heavy attacks, Abel decides to crush Mash by using the gathered magic energy to cast his ultimate spell. He activates his second, which happens to be a three-faced spider-like creature called a Harm Puppet. The leader explains that his spell turns anything within a 100-meter radius into puppets. The transformation begins the moment the invisible strings touch the individual. Love watches on worried because she too is within that radius. Once the victim is turned into a puppet, their body will be toyed with until the person isn't able to recover. The spell starts as the strings violently spread around the area as the doll also attack. Abel stands there commenting on how a rabbit like Mash managed to make him use his full power. This battle has shown him a valuable lesson. However, it seems that learning has not finished because he notices that his puppet is rather getting dismantled. He stands there shocked as Mash casually holds his puppet's hand. The leader is confused at how he managed to stop himself from transforming into a puppet. Mash just confesses that he tore the strings. Abel can't believe what he's hearing as it's impossible to see the strings as they descend. He is certain that no human can stop them. Love saw everything and explained that as Abel activated his spell, Mash positioned his body in a specific way to delay contact with the rest of the strings on parts of his body. Once he felt the strings on his left side, he snapped the strings with his right side before that side was hit. She stands there dazed as she can't believe that this is possible. Even Abel starts to wonder if he's fought a human as a cold sweat runs down his face. Mash sees this and asks why, while addressing him as Mr. Rabbit, this offends the elitist who launches a last-ditch attack. The magicless student smashes it with one punch and quickly gets behind Abel. He grabs him and begins his fake spell casting. Mash jumps up and slams him down with a tombstone that the Undertaker will be proud of. This attack forces Abel into flashback mode as he reveals the event that shaped his current outlook. His mother was a noble but kind woman who interacted with the lower class. One day, she was feeding the less fortunate when an unhinged individual ended her life stating that it was to balance all the good luck she had in her life. Abel sits there and reflects on how his gentle mother had it all wrong and how she believed the less fortunate needed the pity of the elite. Even after getting his brain rocked, he still stands by his objective of eliminating the less fortunate since they cannot live in harmony. He does, however, acknowledge that though he recruited others who think like him to join the mission, he perhaps dipped his hands in powers he never should have been involved in. Abel stands up and informs Mash that his mind cannot be changed. He still holds the position of the idea that weak scum deserves to be pillaged. After listening to all that waffling, Mash temporarily turns into a philosopher and shares his thoughts, saying that bad people are bad regardless of their status. But Abel claps back with a reply that the majority of the bad guys are beneath the elites. Mash has had enough of all of the talk and asks where Lemon is. Since Abel lost, he stands by his words and agrees to release all the students he turned into puppets. Mash thanks him and makes it known to Abel that because he was doing all of this for his mother, it means that he's not really that bad of a guy. Some Kumbaya music plays in the background whilst all this talk no jutsu is going on. Lemon is brought out and dropped into Marsh's arms where she and Finn regain consciousness. The guy rushes over to his friends happy to see that they are well. Lemon apologizes for making them worry, and they start to chant like children. Abel watches them thinking they are fools. He looks up to his mother for confirmation. Finn begins to point at Mash, calling him a hero, while Lemon calls him her husband. but the magicless student is too busy celebrating with his coins. Lemon interrupts the antics to firmly apologize for causing all these problems and thanks him for the save. Barrett also wants some appreciation from his crush Lemon. He joins them as they all begin to celebrate again. The guy's face is somehow missing. Abel still looks at them like they are fools. Finn stops their chanting and points out that Lance is missing, which gets everyone thinking. All the while, he walks through the corridor when he's stopped by Rain, who states that he doesn't belong to this school. Before Lance can give his response, he's attacked by the Divine Visionary, but he blocks. Rain is a little surprised that his magic was deflected. The spider counter tells him that whoever is in front of him has maxed out magic. It is revealed that Rain's guilty till proven innocent ethos works as the imposter exposes himself, dissolving his camouflage. He was certain that he could fool everyone since he used Lance's face. The imposter is named Cell, who is a member of the Innocent Zero, a dark magic organization working in the shadows of society. Rain calls him a sewer rat as he wonders what he's doing in the school. Cell only hints that they are searching for something very important that should be in the academy as they speak. They had Abel search for it, but he couldn't find it. Rain wants to know more, but Cell lets it be known that it's common sense that he will not be revealing their plans to the enemy. He cuts the talk short as he discloses his intention to end Abel since he has expired his usefulness. Rain tries to attack, but it is stopped by John Pierre, a serial slayer and eater of unsavory meats. Rain is worried about his juniors as Cell has the magic power on par with the Divine Visionary. He is certain that they won't stand a chance against the intruder. All the while, Mash and his friends continue to celebrate oblivious to the upcoming danger. The story continues back at Mash's crib where his adopted father is having tea and a discussion with the policeman whose idea it was for them to smuggle him into Magic Academy. We haven't seen these NPCs in a while, so they are happy to be on screen. They sit there worrying about how Mash is faring in school whilst hoping that no one has found out about his secret of being magicless. Back at the academy, the four friends are still celebrating like they won every major sports tournament. Abel looks on wondering how long they are going to be in this state of euphoria for. Mash puts an abrupt end to their madness when he requests to go to the bathroom. All the students who were turned into puppets have been reverted back to their normal selves. As they talk about the lawlessness of the school and the whereabouts of Rain, Cell casually floats in like Casper the Ghost and swats the friends away, which sends them flying. Barrett sits up ready to challenge until he gets a closer look at Cell and recognizes his Supreme Conquer's hockey and overall badass energy, so the flame head simmers down a bit and just watches on. The Agent of Innocent Zero makes his way to Abel and queries him on why he looks like someone had beaten him purple. Cell throws some sly digs at the leader of the Magia Lupus for being pathetic before showing his appreciation to him for giving intel on Headmaster Wahlberg. Cell then materializes that gratitude by moving Abel's hands to meet his own throat to squeeze it with passion to stop the air from entering his lungs. Before the leader of Magia Lupus is finished, Mash interrupts with a tray of cream puffs and orange juice for them to celebrate. It is clear that Mash cannot read a room, so this catches the attention of Cell, who is amazed by Mash's nonchalance. While his friends tell him off for his terrible timing, a fly lands on the magicless student's face, so he sneezes a heavy sneeze that sends the cream puffs flying into the Jesus Christ crown Cell is wearing. The villain is so taken aback by what is going on that he loses focus and releases his grip on Abel. Mash kindly asks Fake Jesus to return the treat because they have every intention of eating it, but Cell is not impressed, so he slams the cream puffs to the ground, which shocks Mash to the core. Fake Jesus begins to address Mash, but he is struck by a sharp headache which he didn't have before the mushroom head stepped into the room. He thinks to himself if Mash really is the guy him and his criminal organization are looking for. There is an awkward stare-off before Cell remembers that he was just in the middle of catching a body, so he continues with the catching of the body. Abel is seen helplessly floating up in the air before a spell from Cell is cast, which dashes its way to pierce the Magia Lupus leader. It looks like Mash is too late to react, but Razor was razor sharp with his reaction and managed to come in between the attack and Abel. Mash rushes over with concern to check on his new friend, who seems to have given up as he tells Mash that their promise of eating cream puffs together may very well not come true. The magicless student walks over and hands Razor a magic handkerchief, which Abel uses to stop the bleeding. Cell stands over them and reveals why his attack wasn't fatal. It was because Mash had picked up a small stone and launched it at Cell's back, which was enough to shift his aim. The villain looks over to Mash with amazement as he confirms that Mash really is the guy. The magicless student looks back and shows him how a true Conquer's hockey stare looks like. Cell isn't phased one bit and begins to talk down to Razor, which gets Mash super mad. So he stamps his foot on the ground and causes fragments of the floor to break. He kicks at it in the direction of Cell in hopes of ending him, but the guy just catches it with a smug look like he's playing dodgeball. He then licks the rock like it is some kind of candy, which Mash finds incredibly strange. The magicless student doesn't really dwell on that subject and warns Cell not to get in his way of taking Razor to the infirmary, otherwise he would have the snot beaten out of him. The villain is very intrigued by Mash's bold claims, so he steps back to challenge the Mushroom Head. He informs the student that they only have 30 minutes to save their friend, so he is curious to see if they can win within that window. He opens a portal and begins to hurl countless attacks at Mash, but the guy meets every one of the projectiles with his bare knuckles like a true Chad. But his limitations are starting to show when some of the fragments cuts him on the shoulder before a huge assault is launched, which has a direct impact on his chest, much to Cell's delight. Abel looks on and knows deep within himself that they have no chance, since the gap between Cell and the magicless student is far too great. The villain sees that Abel is daydreaming, so he tries to catch him off guard, but Mash is there to smash the attack into pixel dust. Cell continues his onslaught, but the magicless student is ready to meet them head-on. Abel can only see their defeat, since he cannot comprehend any way for them to win. He calls Razor a fool for using his body in a last attempt to save his master. But Mushroom Head corrects the Magia Lupus leader by saying that Razor was happy to sacrifice himself because Abel gave him a purpose to live which eradicated his loneliness. These words of Mash triggers a memory in Abel where his mother reminded him that they are incredibly privileged to be born in the circumstance they find themselves in. She told him that things like talent and appearances are mere coincidences, and then gives him the beautiful advice of empathy. She urged him to learn to put himself in the shoes of others. I don't know about you guys, but does it look like young Abel only has 2 facial marks rather than a manual gear stick tattoo he currently has? Anyway, she told him that if he can adhere to this rule, it will make him a little more kind to others. The flashback ends as Mash breaks the projectile apart. Razor regains a bit of consciousness and recalls the day Abel had acknowledged his evil eye as something positive. This made him feel needed, so in light of that, he pleads for his master to flee. All the while, Mash is still punching through the carbon nuggets. Although he is moving forward, Barrett takes a closer look and notices that the nuggets are too many and too heavy, so with the time limit on his hand, he wouldn't be able to close the gap to defeat Cell in time. Barrett contemplates going over to help, but he knows that once he leaves his position, Cell will target Lemon and Finn, so all he can do at the moment is be a spectator. The villain expresses his boredom and therefore increases the heaviness of his attacks, which almost catches Mash off guard, but Abel activates his doll and blocks it just in time before the magicless student is turned into mashed mushroom. Abel makes a speech about how it is the right of the strong to take from the weak, but he also acknowledges that it is also the right of the weak to oppose the strong. Cell is somewhat confused as to why the Magia Lupus leader is opposing him. I think Cell has forgotten that literally 2 seconds ago, he was trying to stop Abel from allowing free oxygen to enter his lungs. The leader launches an offensive, but Cell easily destroys the doll into pieces. Just as he stands there gloating, Mash emerges out of a piece that had fallen close to him. Now that he stands 2 inches away from the fake Jesus, Mushroom Head extends his hand with force and lands an uppercut even Mike Tyson will be proud of. Cell commends him on being the first person to break through his rigid epidermis. He is so impressed that he questions Mash on the type of magic he used. The student is caught off guard, so he scrambles through his brain and comes up with an answer saying his magic is called power. This takes everyone by surprise to know that such a magic exists, but Cell knows that Mash is toying with him, so the villain removes an object that Barrett recognizes right away as being the Spellflexion Mirror. It is said to be a powerful magical item that can reflect any and every spell that is thrown its way. What is worse is that the stronger the spell, the more ferocious the mirror makes it. That object is the most feared magical item, which makes all magic users weak in the knees with terror. Barrett is confused to see it out in the open like that because in his estimation, it is supposed to be in the custody and guard of the Bureau of Magic. He instantly alerts Mash that as magic users, they don't stand a chance against the mirror. The redhead explains how it works, warning him that one mistake and he is as good as dead. Barrett knows that the only way to beat it would be to do it without magic, and such a feat is impossible. Cell puts the mirror in front of his face as he taunts Mash to attack, thinking that his magic will be returned to sender with a little extra. Mash lands a perfect kick to his head that shatters the glass. Everyone, including Cell, looks on shock. They all think back to all the ridiculous feats that Mash has accomplished and are dumbfounded that it was done without magic. All of them don't want to believe it and compare this situation to a fantasy story, but the fact that he smashed the mirror means he did it without magic. Cell looks at his hand as a mark appears. He realizes that Mash could be the one he's looking for. The intruder makes a getaway, but as he does so, he says farewell to Mash and assures the magicless student that their paths will cross again. With the threat gone, Mash turns to Razor as the guy needs treatment, but Abel tells him that he has his subordinate under control, stating that the healing handkerchief Mash gave him helped as it significantly increased the chances of Razor surviving. The injured guy expresses his wish to eat cream puffs with Mash when he heals. Now that they know Mash can't use magic, they quickly make plans on how they are going to cover this up. Shortly after, one of the students hears the conversation and decides to be a Randall and wants to follow the same footsteps as 6ix9ine. He proclaims that he's going to tell the teachers and have them expelled. Mash prepares to deal with the situation while the others look on confused. All the while, Cell makes a report to someone he calls Dad. They have found their target, so he orders him to go retrieve it as his eye glows red, which brings the season to an end.
Thank you. Now move over, let me continue. He is born without magic and 2 brain cells, but is still somehow the strongest in Magic Academy. Welcome to Season 2 of the Cream Puff Addict, aka Mashal Magic and Muscles. The Divine Visionaries are the apex of magic users in the world, and the force that keeps it running. New Divine Visionaries are offered to join the Bureau of Magic, which is the supreme legal institution in this world. They handle most tasks and serve as state-sanctioned forces that protect society from those who look to cause harm. Back at the Magic Academy, Mash and his friends come closer to becoming Divine Visionaries after coming out victorious in their battle against the Magia Lupus. All of Lang's coins go to the House of Adler. However, his battle against Cell caused rumors of Mash's inability to use magic to spread throughout the Academy. Mash later expresses his relief that they managed to come out alive, and looks forward to their victory celebration after school. Finn is not so confident because all they did was shout at the student who uncovered Mash's inability to use magic into submission. Finn's worst fears come to light when another student confronts Mash about his inability to use magic. He simply informs the Pompadour NPC that he actually can. He continues to repeat it like a broken record. His head even begins to smoke up like he's using too much brain power to give his 2-word rebuttal. The random student lets them know that this rumor is the talk of the school now. Finn ignores him and drags Mash away from the situation. The background character reminds Finn that protecting a non-magic user will make him a criminal as well. This could lead to his expulsion or worse. Finn shuts him up, warning him not to comment on who he befriends. The NPC is suddenly crushed to the ground by Lance's gravity magic. The double-liner got offended by the ignorant statements of the background character. The guy tries to complain about the sudden assault, but his hair has been rearranged to reflect his behavior. My guy went from looking like Knocking Master Jiro to Marge Simpson real quick. Lemon pushes a bandaged Barrett into the scene and begins to cry, saying that the guy's injuries were more severe than they thought. She lists 6 broken ribs, a depressed skull, and compound fractures in all 4 limbs, among other ailments, but Barrett seems to be screaming something under the bandages. After school, everyone gathers at Mash's and Finn's room for the party, in celebration of their victory against Lang. They are all excited, but Finn feels like they are sweeping aside the fact that the people they defeated have joined them. Abel pulls out a deck of cards to help break the ice. The leader of Magia Lupus makes it clear that he has no intention of being friends with them. He's just come to celebrate Abyss accepting his past and who he is. Abyss warns them not to beat his boss in the card game. Lemon advises him not to talk like that and offers him some food. The guy malfunctions as he thanks her. Abel steps in to explain that Abyss has such little experience with girls that he calls them females, so he's a bit like us. All the while, Barrett twitches in frustration as Love eats all the food in front of him. Lemon, on the other hand, tries to feed Mash a cream puff as appreciation for all he's done, but the guy can see she's trying to riz him with the traditional woman play. Our boy rejects the offer and shows that he can feed himself. She accidentally drops the cream puff as she complains. Mash uses his OP breathing to suck the snack into his mouth before it hits the ground. This guy ain't got no time for the 5-second rule. Finn takes this time to discuss the battle with Lance, who reveals that he met up with some guy who claimed to be a death row inmate. He fought him, but he retreated midway through the fight. Finn is just shocked that the basement has death row inmates. He takes a moment to watch the party activities and realizes that it's a strange gathering. Abyss sits down with Mash and gives him a warning. As a thank you for the invite, he informs the magicless student that he's been targeted by Innocent Zero, the worst crime syndicate in the magic realm. They are looking for people at the academy with high magical power. He confesses that Abel has power in return for helping them out. Abyss drops the bombshell that Abel got his 3rd line by artificial means, and it was thanks to Innocent Zero. He discloses that genuine triple liners are even more fearsome than Abel. The leader of Magia Lupus only borrowed their resources so that he could gain more coins. It was a small sacrifice for the greater good. The number 2 believes that whoever the criminal syndicate is looking for has some kind of connection connection with MASH. He warns the magicless student to be on his guard as they are sure to return. Abyss is certain that they will receive punishment from Innocent Zero for losing. He talks about how Abel only wanted to create a world where kind people like Victor could live in peace. Abyss knew this and couldn't keep him on that path. So he thanked MASH for stopping his boss. He believes that MASH can make their dream a reality. While they discuss, Finn accompanies Abel back to his room to get a board game. The Pompadour NPC tries to sneak into MASH's room to find evidence to prove that MASH can't use magic. He's shocked to see him talking to Abyss so casually. The guy turns to meet Abel standing before him. The leader of Magia Lupus asks him what he's doing. The background character does the Elvis Presley dance and quickly excuses himself, wondering what is going on. An owl suddenly interrupts MASH's and Abyss's conversation when it busts through the window. It drops a letter for MASH and quietly leaves. Lemon and Abyss join him as he opens it. They have a look of dread on their faces because MASH is being summoned by the Bureau of Magic. The following day, he makes his way to the emergency inquiry concerning his concealment of the fact that he can't use magic. Mr. Bless is the judge of this case. He informs him that it's a serious crime. He explains how people who can't use magic are a threat to what has been created, so they must be eradicated. MASH makes a counter-argument that things don't have to be perfect all the time. The divine visionary Ryo interrupts the trial when he says that all that matters is success when all is said and done. To achieve that, one must first believe in their self. He looks down at MASH and feels that he has the potential to become a real man. Mr. Bless is curious to know what brings a divine visionary to the hearing. Ryo lets him know that details like that don't matter. He turns to MASH to inform him that they live within the rules, and these rules exist for the majority. If they were to accommodate everyone, order would never be upheld. The only way to counter this is to sway the majority to one side. He summons a candle and asks MASH to light it without touching it. Ryo expounds that magic is everything in their world. MASH needs to show them a miracle stronger than magic to justify his existence. He tells MASH to prove himself if he's a true man. Mr. Bless calls Ryo cruel for asking someone with no magic to light up the candle without touching it since it's impossible. MASH steps up, accepting the challenge. The judge is confused when he pulls out a wand since the guy can't use magic. He places the tip of the wand on the floor close to the candle. He begins to rub it with tremendous speed against the ground. This creates a giant fire due to the friction. The burst of flames lights up the candle to their surprise. The magicless student promises to sway the majority with his fist. This makes Ryo to smile. He clicks his finger as he acknowledges MASH. All the while, a staffer at the bureau named Sean waits outside the trial room and shakes when he sees the other divine visionaries approaching. Maddle remarks that they aim to dish out punishment to the magicless student. They wonder what Mr. Wahlberg was thinking allowing this to happen. Maddle reminds them that regulations exist to maintain order, so there are no exceptions. Back inside the hall, MASH assumes that they are adjourning for now since he completed the challenge. Mr. Bless finds this conclusion to be selfish nonsense. His rant is interrupted when some magic sand binds to MASH's leg and is followed by a giant sand blast attack. The magicless student blocks it and wonders what is going on. Mr. Bless is shocked to see so many divine visionaries. Maddle is a by-the-book kind of guy who believes that the system fails if exceptions are allowed. He feels like it is outrageous for those who stand above others to accept any exceptions due to fleeting emotions. Based on his description, MASH must atone with death. The student is bewildered to hear this. Maddle instructs him to assume that this decision is the consensus of all the divine visionaries. He's interrupted by a distorted voice proclaiming that the judgment is unacceptable. Everyone turns around to see that Mr. Bless has been possessed. Sounds like he wasn't so blessed. The perpetrators reveal themselves to be Innocent Zero and claim that MASH belongs to them, so the visionaries should back off. The visionaries conclude that MASH must have an unusual origin that has ties to them, but the boy protects this when he makes it clear that he's nobody's possession. Renatus lets him know that no one cares about his opinion now. Innocent Zero informs all that are present that they are serious. To prove this, they reveal that they have embedded a Magi-Parasite inside Mr. Bless. Sean lets out a cry, so MASH wonders who this background guy is. It is revealed that a Magi-Parasite is a dangerous magical creature that feeds off mana and uses humans as a host for its larvae. It reacts to those who try to peel it from its host by making them their new home. Innocent Zero informs them that they should consider this act as a statement to everyone that the world belongs to them. Rio cuts through all the long talk and deduces that Not So Innocent Zero is declaring war against the Bureau of Magic. He guessed they made this bold move because they were eager to end the long-standing conflict they had been having. Rio is in support of their new direction. He makes his way down and discloses that he's going to remove the Magi-Parasite. Sean is not in support of this as he reveals that a Magi-Parasite is a nemesis, especially for powerful magic users like Ryo. Ryo assures him that he will be fine because he's the strongest and hottest guy in the magic realm. During that interim, Mash removes the parasite as the visionaries watch on shocked. The parasite immediately jumps into Mash's mouth after a moment of struggle, but he suddenly spits it out. Sean stops his berating of Mash when he realizes that the guy artistically tied up the creature in his mouth. The magicless student gently places Mr. Bless down to recover. Mash points out that he defeated the enemy messenger and saved the old man, so he closes the case. Ryo calls his actions flawless and comments that Mash is a treasure. Maddle doesn't think that his issue has been resolved yet. He informs him that the regulation is law, and since he can't use magic, his opinion should not be respected. Mash plants his feet on the ground in protest in response to following them. Maddle wastes no time and attacks him. As he prepares to finish Mash off, the guy can see the attack, but it's stopped by Ryo. The blonde guy holds Maddle at weapon point. He tells Maddle that his vote wasn't added. Maddle informs him that his opinion is not needed. A giant sword from Rain causes both parties to back off, and he enters with Wahlberg, or as I like to call him, Bootleg Dumbledore. The story continues when Ortier wishes to know why Wahlberg called all of them. He points out that the principal hiding the fact that Mash doesn't have any magic and is attending Easton Academy is out of order. Ortier doesn't feel like there is a need for an inquiry. Per the rules, Mash needs to be given the maximum penalty. Wahlberg requests that the Divine Visionaries defer his sentencing. He points out that this is the first time Innocent Zero has sent a messenger. The old man believes that there is a high chance that Mash will give them a lead to the criminal group. Based on this, they can't afford to lose him at this juncture. Looking at the Visionaries' behavior towards Wahlberg, Mash concludes that the headmaster must be important. Ryo reveals that Wahlberg is a previous Divine Visionary. The guy is a living legend, and is the only one to go toe-to-toe against Innocent Zero in his youth. He's the only one that Ryo respects, which is a big deal. He even goes as far as to call the headmaster a man among magic users. Ortier understands the old man's position, but he refuses to accept it, as he's of the mindset that regulation exists to maintain order, so Mash should be purged. This guy is more by the book than Mr. Mosby. He pauses when Wahlberg removes his hat to plead with the Visionaries. They are also shocked by the gesture. The discomfort is written on their faces. The headmaster acknowledges the fact that Mash is rough around the edges, can't use magic, and is not too scholarly. However, the old man informs the youngsters that the student has the unusual gift to sway people's hearts. The headmaster believes that people like Mash will change how they perceive the world. He adds that currently those without magic have been treated as inferior. Wahlberg takes issue with this unjust treatment. He tells them that society's values change alongside history, but redefining these values takes courage. The first step is them admitting the injustices they have committed thus far. Ortier comments on how he respects the headmaster's position, but he still stands by the fact that they must stick to the rules. He's shocked to see Rain bend the knee in agreement with the old man's stance. Rain even goes as far as saying that Mash has proven himself worthy of their trust. The others understand their points, but they are still adamant that regulation must be enforced. Mr. Bless also chips in and acknowledges that a magicless person just saved his life. He knows that he should be following regulations since he's the judge of this case, but he agrees with the headmaster in deferring Mash's sentencing. The judge is ready to accept any punishment the Visionaries see fit, but he refuses to change this verdict. Ortier finally folds a little, but only under certain conditions. Mash will only act under their supervision as a pawn against Innocent Zero. He must also prove that he's strong enough to fight Innocent Zero, and the only proof is for him to become the current year's Divine Visionary candidate. Should Mash fail, he will be purged immediately. The guy accepts these terms. He punches the floor, certain that to embody the headmaster's wishes, and for him to live in peace with everyone, he must defeat Innocent Gyro. The guy actually said gyro as in the Greek kebab. Only Mash could casually mispronounce the name of their main adversaries in front of such an esteemed gathering. In an unknown location, a mysterious figure sits on a throne, and it seems like the shockwaves from Mash's punch have reached him. With his life extended a little longer, the magicless student heads back to the academy where he explains all that happened at his hearing. Finn is a little worried that his friend must fight against such a dangerous organization. Lance is surprised that it has been officially confirmed that Mash can't use magic. Barrett suggests that they go out as a group to have some fun, which confuses Finn at first. But as he waits for the rest in town, he concludes that the redhead likely suggested this as an alternative to...
It's about that's 4 minutes.
Sorry, people, but this is where I can end. Like and subscribe down below.